time to stream. Turn that off. Hold on. There we go. Okay, that's something. Wait, which screen do I want? They're all the same. All of my scenes are like the same, but just subtly different because yeah, I need like a layout or something. I should do layout one of these days. Like a little border around the screen with all the stuff. I don't know. Could be fun. Maybe put some like jungly leaves and stuff and plants and vines. I feel like that would kind of fit. Kind of landscapey. I don't know. Wait, is that what Skittle? Maybe that's what Skittle has. I don't actually know. I don't want to copy another streamer like completely. But yeah. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope the day is good. Reading some homework that is due for discussion in an hour. I mean, yeah, that's okay. You're doing it though. Wait, didn't you? Okay, maybe I'm dumb. Didn't you say that you're also teaching? Are you is that like graduate thing where you're teaching a class while you're doing like your PhD or master's or something? I don't quite know how that works. I don't know enough about what you're studying and what's going on. But yeah, good luck with the discussion. I'm sure you'll do fine. It'll be fresh in your memory. That's what you can tell yourself. It was all planned. You teach German 101 and study German as a master's program. Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. All right, I am going to... I don't know what I'm going to do. I think, oh yes, I'm going to do vertical. I should say what I'm going to do because I already thought about it. I'm going to do vertical paintings today. I was going to paint like I guess you can call it concept art, but it'd be more illustration at this point. Based an illustration of a Minecraft build that I'm making, kind of. But I don't think I'm going to do that today. I'm just going to paint vertical paintings and just chill, have fun. I've been really happy with the stuff that I've been doing lately on stream. This is what we did last stream with an upside down boat. Some people gave us boat references, and this is a real type of boat where there's this, I mean, this is a little bit distorted probably, but there's this thingy that sticks underneath the water, and it's like a big, I don't know, it looks like a big pointy thing that would hit things and spear other boats. I don't know. But basically it's based on a real boat. And then yeah, there's like some stuff shipwrecked ashore, big old wheel. I think that's a little too big. Scale might not work. You know, barrels floating around. I was happy with this painting. I did crop it a little bit. Greek, yeah, it's a Greek boat, I think. Yeah, I don't know much about boats. I just thought it looked cool. But I learned a little bit. You know, based on like visual information, which is, you know, something. And then, let's see, and then before that, we had... This was the oh, that was the last painting. This was the painting before that. So, like, all of these I've been really happy with. And this one I also cropped. I just uploaded this one today, I think. But this one, I think this is how it started. It was much wider. But I realized there's a lot on this side that didn't need to be here. So I cropped it. Also, I didn't double check to make sure YouTube is actually live. I think it is. Yeah. There we go. But anyway, so I've been finding that cropping my paintings, I don't know what it is. It's like, I think partly because I don't really plan my paintings, and I kind of, like, I am thinking compositionally, so I am thinking to make all the parts fit together well. But because I didn't plan it and do iterations on it, that's kind of the stage where I would like mess around with different croppings and all that. But I didn't do that. But I have been finding that pretty much every painting that I do looks better if I crop it in some way. So that could be a failing on my compositional planning, but also I think I'm not doing iterations, because I'm doing like 9 different, or in this case 8 different paintings. So each one will have its subtle issues, so I tend to be able to get a better image by cropping it a little bit. But it would be nice to get to the point where cropping isn't going to make it look better, right? That would be a goal. Where the initial sketch, and I think a lot of that would I think a lot of the reason that happens is because I'm not sketching outside. If I had to guess, my biggest issue is I'm not drawing like an object that's breaking the silhouette as much, and I'm doing a lot of this, like, even if it's subtle and I don't notice it, I'm containing stuff in the image. So when I crop it down lower like this, it ends up breaking the silhouette in a much nicer way because it's, you know, more zoomed in and focused. Whereas I think I'm doing a lot of these unintentional compositional things that kind of every object is contained in the frame instead of having more objects breaking the frame like this, right? Because I think that would look better. Also, if the focal point is like, you know, this big, if there's a character or something, just zooming in a little bit more is going to make it more in focus, make it more, you know, it just feels like you're more in the scene, I think, when that happens. So that's something I'm trying to do more of. So maybe that'll be my plan for today, is draw outside of the box. I also, well, actually I'll mention that later. Well, no, I won't. I'll mention it now, because I'll probably mention it later too. But I finally ordered a book that we've been talking about a little bit, or Sarah brought it up. She's the one who's been trying to get me to buy it. It's called, I forget what it's called. I think it's called How Buildings Work. I think so. How Buildings Work. Basically, it's like an architectural style breakdown. I don't know exactly about it. I think it has maybe some history of styles and the key distinguishing features of different architectural styles and periods, and basically goes through and makes it so you, or maybe it's how to read architecture. I don't know. It's one of those, something like that. But anyway, I think it'll be nice because it'll hopefully it'll teach me some stuff about architecture, hopefully. So that's a thing. That's something I did. I finally ordered the book. It was $14. Well, more than that, like 17 probably, after all taxes and shipping and all that. But yeah, so that's the thing. I'll be getting a new book in a bit. I haven't bought anything for myself in like 8 months. Like literally nothing. Not even like a pair of socks. Like just absolutely nothing. I pretty much don't buy stuff. And so yeah, that's it. You know, every once in a while, I have to. Or I feel like it's probably, I probably owe it to myself to buy something every once in a while. So yeah. Also, I am gonna paint with grays today. Grayish colors, a mixing of hues, lots of, I don't know, I was gonna say radiating, but that's not the right word, and not complementary, vibrating color. That's okay. I got a question. I don't know if there's enough people here for this to be a good question for stream right now, but when people talk about color vibration, like I understand, you know, actual light is in waves, and technically waves can vibrate, but like when you talk about putting two colors together, and then is that just like, that just feels like flowery words, right? Like, I understand that there is, like, they do look good together, right? Certain colors, they have a, you know, there are little, like, color notes that poke out, and they do, it sort of, it makes it feel and look special. But that's what they're talking about, right? When they're talking about, like, because it's like a word, it's a verb that is used so much. I consider vibrating colors the one that cause a bit of eye strain. Yeah, it is a little bit of that, right? It's like there's a little bit of eye strain, but also if you're not paying attention to it, it kind of has this like there's just a little color notes that kind of shimmer through, which I kind of get, but like it's funny because to me it's just like subtle color. I wouldn't really call it vibrating, but it seems to be a word that people use so much to describe like colors that are very similar in terms of value or hue. Like they're very similar, but they're different enough that they kind of, I don't know, like they create a contrast in one way, right? Like in hue or just in temperature, but not in value typically. But anyway, Rachel, how's it going? I remembered that your name is Rach, not Ra. I've been saying your name completely wrong because I had no idea how to say it, so I just guessed. Anyway, until you explained it the other day when after I had ended the stream and we had raided. But yeah, anyway, hope you're doing well. Don't worry about it. Faceless human. Yes. Wait, am I faceless? I should have a face. No, I have a face. But yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I just thought it was kind of funny because, yeah, it happens. But anyway, yeah, vibrating colors is such a weird. I don't know. It's one of those phrases that I always feel weird to even say because I'm just kind of repeating what other people say. But there is something nice about it, right? Like when you have colors that are subtle, there is a I don't know if a vibration is the right word, but it's like a nuanced interestingness. That's probably worse. Maybe I'll just stick with vibrations. I don't know. I'm just always a little bit of, like, not afraid, but cautious of using certain language in art because so much of, well, there's two parts to this, but so much of my, like, me getting into art was sort of rediscovering it for myself. And a lot of that came from, like, getting past all the wishy-washiness of the not very good communication on behalf of artists to non-artists, right? So like growing up, you hear people talk about all these things that are just these, like it's a very spiritual. Anyway, that it's a very particular thing, but yeah, it definitely put me off of art. I think, like, I honestly think that is a big reason why I didn't get into painting until I was into my 20s. But now I'm fully into painting. And then now I'm encountering a lot of people and just also so there's also a book I started reading which is like I think it's from originally from the 80s, maybe 80s, I don't know. But it's a very like spiritually new agey book about painting and sort of your inner creativity or artist, and it is just packed full of all of the things that I hate about the wishy-washiness of language around art. It is basically like I could never quite put into words what I didn't like about how some people talk about art. But now that I'm reading this book, that book perfectly encompasses that feeling because it is just it's leaning hard into that side of stuff. And it is so hard to get through. But I'm reading it because I think there's a lot of ideas in there. One, it's a super popular book, or it was. I don't know if it is anymore. But it was a super popular book. And I think a lot of people used it as sort of their guide toward, like, that's how they think of art and creativity. And so I don't know if, like, that's the source of, I don't want to say misconceptions, but the weirdness of language around art, like but it feels like it's definitely a contributor. given that I know it's a popular book. But yeah, it's that's why that topic's on my brain. It's the mildly. I don't even know if mild is the. Yeah, it's the very religious. Mildly. Yeah. It's mildly religious. So, yeah. Hold on. I gotta find what the book is actually called so I can name drop it because it's. I think it's called The Artist's Way. Let me look it up. I'm listening to it on audiobook. Yeah, The Artist's Way. It is not a book I would recommend. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Well, gosh. Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a friend recently about it. It feels like, I mean, one, oh gosh, I don't want to go on this rant again too much, but whatever. There's not that many people here yet. We can do a quick rant. So I am not a religious person, but that doesn't matter, or at least she says it doesn't matter in the book, but it does because the way that she talks about information and trying to make a point is very much like just trust me bro, right? Like it's sort of just have faith that it'll work, just believe me, do the things I say. And it's like, no, I don't believe you. Some of the things you say do seem to be like have a reason behind them, but you're not convincing me for the other stuff, right? Like you need to actually make it a point, like make an argument, back it up in some way, and she doesn't. And that to me, a lot of it is sort of it's coming from that sort of faith and mysterious, oh, you don't even try to understand it, right? It's like, no, I do want to understand it, and we can, and there's a lot of science around these topics already that you're ignoring. And also, like, she gets into mental health stuff a lot because a lot of artist stuff, like I don't think an art book would probably be very well rounded if it didn't, because mental health stuff is a lot, right? Like trying to create things, the fear of failure, right? There's all these topics. And yet she's basically offering up mental health advice with nothing to support like her solutions to these problems. Like I don't it just feels like it's a book based on vibes, and I think there's a lot of, she has a lot of experience making art, I think, and a lot of the stuff that, and she seems like she's well read, at least in, she quotes a lot of new agey people a lot. But anyway, so like I think a lot of the practical solutions she offers up aren't bad, but it's all the framework is just, it's like a bunch of nonsense with an occasional truth bomb of sorts. And it's like, I don't, yeah, it's a lot. I like, on one hand, I think there are probably people who would benefit from it because it does have a lot of like practical solutions that I think are okay-ish. And if you can kind of pick and choose, but if you cherry pick the stuff that applies to you, I think it's a pretty good book. But the problem is it's not universal information, and I think if people use it as that, it could arguably do more harm than good. Anyway, it's a whole thing, and I wouldn't really recommend it. I don't think you have to go to that book to get those things, but it has some solid practical advice, like, keep a journal, try to write a little bit in the journal every day and don't let other people see it, because it's sort of like a, that's where you can experiment and explore and be creative and like free of the judgment of others. Like, I think that's a great idea, right? I think if you're trying new things, you shouldn't do it around or with other people. Well, I mean, you can, but like, if there's that pressure on you of doing things and looking good while doing it, it is harder to be comfortable to really just play and explore and try and learn, right? Like, it's hard to do that if you're afraid of being criticized or looking silly or whatever. Like, I think that's a good advice. And so there are a lot of things like that in the book that's like, yeah, people should do that stuff, and she addresses a lot of problems. But yeah, way too spiritual. uh, yeah, it's something. And I'm only like 4 hours into the audiobook, and it's a 10-hour book or 8-hour book. I mean, it is like lessons. It goes by week, and it tries to talk through different issues and stuff that are associated with the things. So, like, again, it does have lessons, but yeah. But it's funny because that book, I got the 25th anniversary audiobook, or that's what I'm listening to. And because it's the 25th anniversary, it has like a foreword by the author. And because the book was such a good seller, the author is basically going in there on an ego boost and writing a little foreword to the book saying, like, basically just like putting herself on a pedestal and like bragging. It is so hard to read. It's gotta be the, I don't know. I don't understand how it became such a bestseller, but whatever. It was recommended to me. Which, not really recommended to me, but suggested, kind of. I don't know. It's kind of fun, though. I will say I do enjoy reading of different perspectives on those topics. You know, creativity, just making art, you know, forming good habits, dealing with the struggles that artists sometimes deal with in certain things, or really anyone trying to make things or learn skills or be creative. So I do enjoy those different perspectives, but man, it is a hard one to get through, because there is a lot of just trust me, bro logic in there. That's the only way I know how to describe it. But yeah. So that's what I've been doing, is reading that book. Finished your reading? Oh, that was quick. That wasn't much reading then. Yeah, we were just talking about reading. I'm reading a book called The Artist's Way. I'm not sure I recommend it, but it is, I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I think if you take it with a grain of salt and you also read 20 other books, there's actually some pretty good, like, tips in there, or ways of thinking about problems. So I think it is a book worth reading, but it's only if you're also reading a ton of other stuff. Because if you just read because it literally acts like it is the Bible. Like, it's, you know, ignore everything else and just listen to me. And, like, I think if that was the only book you read and you did what it said, that would be really harmful, right? But I think if you allow yourself to cherry pick it and sort of just use it as a big, broad, you know, don't take it too seriously kind of thing, I think it's okay. But I feel like it's a dangerous book because of the way that it's very preachy, and it's like, do this, do this, do this, don't do this, don't do this, and there's no exceptions, no nuance, and it feels, yeah. It felt longer than it was. It was in German, and it was basically all description rather than having some action. Oh, interesting. Was it a story, or was it like instructional or educational stuff, content, like a textbook type stuff, or like short story stuff? But yeah, speaking of art books, or book reading in general, are there any art books that you guys do recommend? I'm always on the lookout for other books. It doesn't have to be art specifically, but it could be like, you know, I know a lot of people talk about like habit books and stuff, or those types of things. There's Art and Fear, which is a commonly cited one. There's, you know, other books that have to do with those topics, like, you know, Atomic Habits, which isn't really, that's not quite the same, but, you know, stuff like that. I always enjoy those kinds of books, but, or actually, I didn't really enjoy Atomic Habits, but I did read it. but no, a lot of people talk about like Art and Fear, which it's a better book. I think that book is a far better book. Although it's not really about how to, it's not making the promise that you're going to be more creative, right? That's not. But yeah. But yeah, I'm just making some shapes in here. Just playing around with color palettes. Going really simple, very soft. Soft color palettes today. I might add in additional things later. I'm trying to think of what other art books I've read that aren't strictly educational, right? I have obviously read books like Color and Light and how pictures work and all that, but I'm talking more about books, or I guess even videos, but really I'm mostly books. Like Art and Fear. I don't know if I've read that. Oh, there was a really good book I read recently. It was, gosh, what's the name? I hate it when there's a good book and I don't remember the name. The name was, it was a very dry. I think it was called the Science of Storytelling. Is that? Oh, let me Google. I don't think it was the Art of Storytelling. I think it was the Science of Storytelling. Yes, the Science of Storytelling. I thought it was a really good book, and it's not specifically about art. It's just really anything that relates to story, right? And story is everywhere, and it, you know, it. So it deals with like a bit of like the science on, you know, how like memory formation and recall and all that kind of thing, and it also talks about just lots of things around that topic. So it's not like this is how you tell a story. It's not that, right? It's not from an artist or from a storyteller's perspective. It's from just, here is a big topic and here are all these little things, these little subcategories of that topic to kind of, you know, if it relates to storytelling, this book probably touches on something that relates to that thing, right? So it's not like here's a book for artists who want to learn to tell stories, right? But I think it's a super useful book because it's I think it's a great book. Although, funny enough, I don't remember it that well because I kind of rushed through it because I was on a library loan, and so I kind of binged it in the last few days before I had to return it. So I should probably re-listen to it because I can't. It's hard for me to draw up like specific examples. I just remember that as I was reading it, I'm like, wow, this has a lot of good info in it. Do you guys ever do that? Or maybe that's mostly how you do it. Actually, funny thing about, I think the book literally talks about this topic, where it's like you don't always remember the specifics, but you remember how you felt, right? You remember how a story makes you feel, not necessarily the specifics, you know, stuff along that. And I think, you know, there's obviously a lot of stuff work around that specific thing. But anyway, yeah, I remember thinking to myself, this is good info, but also I couldn't tell you a single, because the guy who wrote it uses a lot of examples of like to illustrate the points that he's making, but I couldn't tell you a single example. So yeah, I didn't remember it that well, but it was a very informative. I remember it being a very informative book. I should probably reread it. But yeah, I'm trying to think of others. Science of Storytelling, Art and Fear, which honestly, Art and Fear is not, I keep mentioning it, but it's not really, it's not like an amazing book. It's just one of the few that I've read. There's so many books out there on how to write, and none of them, yeah, I mean, writing is kind of, Yeah, there's a lot, and also like depending on like there's so many cultural differences. And I think if I remember correctly, one of the parts of the book is about like story formats, like 3-part acts or 5-part plays or whatever, or 5-act plays or stuff like that, where it's stories in 5 acts or 3 acts and 2 acts and different. He talks about different cultures and how a lot of people try to like figure out the optimal thing, and basically the conclusion is like there is no optimal. Like there are some parts that might be important, but also he's not trying to teach you how to write. And I think that's what I liked about the book, The Science of Storytelling. It's not here is how you write a story. It is just here's a bunch of things that science tells us about this topic. But it's not about writing stories. It's about storytelling as a like way of navigating the world, right? We navigate it through stories, or oftentimes we do, and we, you know, we connect things to things we already know, and we build on information. Like it's kind of that. It's like how we understand the world a little bit. But yeah, did I ever mention you wrote a book? I don't think so. I'm editing it right now to see if I can get a literary agent. Oh, that's awesome. What kind of book? Like fiction, like novel? You said book, so I don't know why. I'm assuming it's not a novel, because I feel maybe is it a novel, or is it like on a topic? Oh, it is. Okay, so fantasy story. Gotcha. Nice. That's awesome. But yeah, I think how-tos when it comes to like art is always going to be finicky, right? That's where I just think like big general principles are nice, because I think there is a, like in any of those how-to things, like how to write good stories, there's always like, I mean, similar to this religious book that I read or am reading, maybe gonna continue. I don't know. Similar to that book, uh, like the framework is pretty terrible, but peppered throughout it is some good advice, and I think there are just some things that I think are nearly universally true. I say hesitantly, and I think a lot of times artists will pick up on these patterns of things that very clearly work, and we may not know why they work, and so we say just do this thing because we know it works. But really, if you just take the reason it works, there's actually other things you can do that still do that same thing, right? So they still have the same effect, but they're not the thing the artists are prescribing. And I think that happens a lot, where like there's a little bit of truth to the things that people just make up. Like they're not just making them up for no reason, right? They're making them up because they have seen results with them, but it's not nuanced. It's not a nuanced take. So when people are like, you need a 5-act story, and it's like, no, you don't. But also, there is a good reason people do it. I couldn't tell you what that reason is, but but it's like, but there's also other ways to get those same effects, right? So yeah, that always bugged me a little bit with a lot of those like how to do art type things. Like, come on, like obvious. And I'm not gonna take the stance either. Like, oh well, art's subjective, therefore there is no right way. It's like, no, there definitely are, depending on what your goals are, there definitely are more and less effective ways to do things, right? If you want to move an audience to tears, there are going to be certain things you can do that will do a better effect of that than other things, right? It's not gonna be, it's not there's not only one way to do it, but there definitely are, you know there's a psychology behind it on what's going to make someone laugh, or what's going to make someone cry, or how people connect to characters. Like there is science there, and there are practical things you can do, but you have to be careful when people offer specific solutions, because there might be a lot more to it than that. And yeah. Let's see. But yeah, I'm just starting out today with a whole bunch of really soft color palettes. That's my goal. There's basically little gradients. I don't know if soft color palettes is the right word, but basically just gradients. Gradients of color. Like greens shifting into reds, shifting into whites and yellows and oranges. You know, little bits of colors that bridge each other. I keep asking people for feedback on your story. They all have something else to say about it and how to make it better. Everyone has different ideas. Yeah, so funny. So I can't speak on writing, obviously, but I can speak on art on this topic. I think this is super common, right? There are a million solutions. Like, getting and giving feedback is hard, and I think this is a perfect example. If I had to guess, I'm only guessing because I don't know, obviously, without seeing what they said. But I think it's really common where people will identify a problem. They won't tell you the problem, but instead they'll give you their solution. But like, well, there's 1,000 solutions, but they're only offering up their solution to a problem that they never even told you what the problem is, right? And maybe they do say what the problem is. If they tell you what the problem is, I would ignore their solution, because just take the problem. It probably, like, they probably are hitting on something, right? There's the example I always start out whenever this conversation comes up. It's the helicopter example. Someone left a comment once on my DeviantArt, or on my DeviantArt page. It was on a painting I uploaded. It's still there, actually. But all they said, well, they left a big rambly like critique, but basically they summed it up by saying, you just need to put a helicopter in the sky. Or maybe that was all they said. I don't remember. The same person left a bunch of critiques, but one of their critiques was, this painting needs a helicopter in the sky. And, like, that was a bad critique. Like, it didn't need a helicopter in the sky. There was probably lots of things that could have gone there. But I think they were hitting on a very real issue, right? They were hitting on an issue, which is there was a big empty space, and there wasn't really any, like, life or movement or story, and, like, there seems to be, like, that would be a good spot to put it, right? Is, do you take this big empty space, the painting is missing something, and also it's physically missing something because there's a big empty space, and, like, you could kind of do, you know, kill two birds with one stone, and, like, by putting a helicopter in there, it would fill the space, and it would add some story, which it was probably lacking. Not a bad solution, honestly. I mean, it was terrible in that, like, there's no reason I wanted my painting to have that story. So, like, it was a bad solution that it wasn't my painting. But it was a good solution that I do think it touched on, like, you know, the issue. But the problem is they never told me what the issue was, right? All they gave me was a solution. And it's like, their solution sucked. So what am I to do with that? But I do think there was an important lesson in there, which is try to understand where the person's coming from, right? And if that means you asking more questions of them to, like, pry it out of them, because maybe they don't have the vocab, maybe they don't know enough about what your goals were, right? So I think this is where, like, having a long back and forth with the person could be good. Because, like, if they don't know what you're going for, if they don't know the mood, the tone, your, you know, all the motivations of all your characters, like, when something falls flat and it's not there, they just have to guess, right? This is like, I mean, I could just imagine someone going into a movie theater, and this has happened a lot, where people will come out and be like, that movie was stupid, it didn't make any sense. If only they would have done this, this, and this, it would have fixed it. And then I came out of the same movie thinking they very clearly were trying to be confusing, and they were trying to be chaotic, and it wasn't supposed to make a lot of sense. And so I'm thinking, like, okay, this person thought it was supposed to make sense and they missed the mark. I thought they were trying to be confusing, and maybe they missed the mark on the other direction. And so, like, we both clearly were guessing at what the intent was, and we were guessing different things, so our solutions were different, right? Like, if they were trying to make a chaotic movie, they could have maybe pushed it even more absurd so that the audience knows it was supposed to be chaotic, right? Rather than having like a story with weird plot holes and you're like, this is kind of weird, like, I don't know, kind of bad. But like, so sometimes the author needs to make their intent a little clear, I think. And if it's not clear, it's really hard to critique that without asking, right? And if you think it's obvious, you're never going to tell me, right? You're never going to tell me what the motivation of your character was if you specifically wrote it to be clear. But the problem is when it's not clear, it's never going to get stated, and then there will be this big, like, I think isn't there a thing in like psychology, which isn't exactly this, but it's like the missing thing problem, where like the person who's missing the info doesn't know to convey that they don't have the info, like, because they don't know you don't know what you don't know, basically. And so there's always this problem of like, what parts of the story are left out, right? What is the person not telling you when they're explaining their problem to you? Because there's probably some blind spot. And I think that exists in art too, right? There's always a blind spot, and you don't know the right question to ask. It's very hard to ask for a critique and to say, help me on my painting, because you don't know what you need, right? And the other person is just guessing, but they don't know because maybe it's not, I think it's a tougher problem than people realize. Hello, Strumeagle. How's it going? I don't know if that psychology thing actually relates to that, but it does feel similar. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it quite relates to that. Basically, well, I think it has to do with like so I've only heard like therapists talk about this idea where like a lot of times when people are in therapy, I don't know what the term is, but when people are in therapy and they will let's say they tell you of a problem that they're dealing with, maybe it's their spouse or their partner, and they're explaining this interaction and they tell you from their perspective, but they're leaving out all this information that they did or in this situation because they didn't think it was relevant, but it was actually super relevant to how the other person responded, but they just didn't even know that it was important. It's like to them it was just normal, and so they aren't going to bring it up because to them the problem was something else, and so they're focused on a problem. But it's like, to the person listening, they're like, well, there's clearly some if this person's reacting extreme to a thing that you did that is normal, clearly there's a gap, right? There's a gap between like, this is what you said, this is how they responded. Either you didn't say what you thought you said, right? Something else happened, or they are just insane and they responded crazy, but probably not, right? There's probably something missing there that isn't being communicated, and the person communicating it doesn't know enough to communicate it, and so you really have to like pry it out of them. Like, you have to start digging because they aren't gonna fill that gap of, action versus response kind of. I think it's like that. I don't know. I'm not don't take this as like fact. This is not my area, but I think a lot of times with critiques that happens, right? A person essentially is coming to someone and saying, also, hi Kath. Someone is coming to someone else and saying, I need help, right? My painting is struggling, and they're saying like, well, what do you need help with? And then the person tells them, and it's like, that's not even the issue, and yeah, and so it's tough. I think it's really, yeah, I think it's tough. Anyway. Ramble over. But yeah, that's probably kind of what I'm talking about. Kath, those are probably the words. Probably something similar. But yeah, that was a rant. Kath, I already brought up that book though, because I just ordered a book, not the religious book, but I just ordered a book on architecture, and it hasn't arrived yet. I think it might arrive today, but it's like a how buildings work book. So it's like breaks down the different styles of architecture and what makes them unique, and maybe why certain things exist in those styles, like how they came about through practical purposes or material restraints or whatever. Which book? So the book I ordered is called How Architecture Works, I think. I think that's it. Or no, How Buildings Work. I think it's called How Buildings Work. Sarah in one of the a person in our community, they recommended it to me. And then the religious book is called The Artist's Way, which I don't think I recommend. I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe it's like a guilty pleasure book because it's yeah, I don't know. I think honestly I would just not recommend it. But it is, I am reading it because it's hard for me not to recommend a book when I'm actually, there's something about it that I'm enjoying in a way that is like watching a train wreck on social media kind of thing, where it's like, do you recommend other people engage in that activity? No. Right? Like I don't encourage other people to get caught up in drama on social media, but there is a part of me that kind of enjoys it. And so it's like I like it kind of, but also I would never recommend other people engage in this. So yeah, that's a thing. Do you guys ever get that feeling? Like, here's a thing I really like, but I really don't want to recommend it to anyone. Like, I almost feel like it's irresponsible for me to recommend it to people. But at the same time, that architecture book was a book in architecture school? Yeah, probably. I think it was called How Buildings Work. Yeah, it probably was a textbook. Yeah, it's very much a book like that. It's educational. I feel that way about BoJack Horseman. It's an amazing show, but there are so many trigger warnings and heavy themes. I just don't think I could recommend it. Gotcha. What are we irresponsibly recommending people? Oh gosh. So there's a book, Skittle, called The Artist's Way, which is basically like a new, I think the book, when was it written? It might have been written in like the 70s, or like maybe it was only like the 2000s. I don't know, because it said 25-year anniversary. So maybe it was like early 2000s or 90s or something. But it's kind of like a new agey self-help book for artists that makes giant promises, like they will, basically turn you into a creative, not necessarily, well, they're basically like, we will untap your creativity, and they make these promises of like, just do these courses, do this work stuff, and it's very new agey, spiritual, invoking God a lot. And it just makes, it's very like hand wavy, wishy-washy, and all of the points they make is just like, just trust me, it'll work. And they don't really offer up any sort of concrete reason or justification. I mean, they kind of do. It's not really concrete though. It's more of just trust me. And so it's, and there's a lot of stuff that deals with like mental health, which I do not think this person is qualified at all based on the way they talk about things and the way they describe things. So like, it gets into some pretty sketchy territory, I think, especially in the mental health stuff. And I don't think it's a good book. But there are some little nuggets of like, oh, I hadn't thought about, maybe I could try this. That would be a fun little exercise to do. Like, there are some things that could be valuable to people, I think. And if you pick and choose, it could be nice. But I just feel irresponsible recommending the book. I just don't think it's a good, I just don't think it's good. But I am kind of addicted because it keeps getting more and more unhinged. And yeah, like I like the unhingedness. Is that a word? Unhingedness? Kind of boring, but hopefully a good read. Yeah, yeah, no, I don't mind a boring book. The How to Read Buildings book. I think it'll be good. That stuff's nice just to have. You can thumb through it every once in a while. You can, or you can read it, force yourself to read it. I think there'll be good info in there. See, like that's the type of book where it's not going to be as enjoyable, but I feel like I'd be more likely to recommend it like a textbook type thing where it has good information in it. There's no real downside to the book other than maybe it's a little dry, but like it's not actively spreading misinformation. Whereas the other book, I feel like there's straight up just bad, not true things in there. uh, so yeah, it's a bit of unhingedness can be hard to look away from. It really can. It can. A little bit of unhingedness. It can do. Yeah, it definitely has a way of captivating your attention or capturing your attention. So yeah, I don't have any plan with these, by the way. I am just making stuff, making colors, or not making colors, putting colors, slapping the colors on the canvas. Y'all and artists might like a pattern language, architectural related theory on patterns in the built environment. Ooh, that could be cool. A Pattern Language by Christopher Alexander. Let me add it to my maybe books. But yeah, stuff like those books like that where they're also adjacent to art. It's not specifically for art, but it might be architecture, urban design, could be really anything, right? Landscape architecture, which is what I have my degree in, and so, that's obviously a topic that I think about or I have thought about. Um, but yeah, really anything like that. It could even be like a program, something in programming, or I mean, there's all sorts of topics, right? Where you can bridge them and connect them. What was the Unhinged book? The gosh, I feel bad saying this. I don't want to like. Maybe someone's gonna really love this book, and I'm gonna feel bad because it feels like I'm trash talking a thing someone might like. It's called The Artist's Way. I feel like we just know so much more about human habit forming and behavior and creativity and like making things. Like we just know so much more about it, even probably from the time that the book was written. But that was a question that was asked on YouTube. Also, I don't know if the is my little box, my chat box thingy, is that working for YouTube? That doesn't look like it is. Well, that's annoying. Oh, no, it is. There it is. I see. Okay. I see at the bottom there. Perfect. I'm going to do this. Just going to put it there. There we go. And yeah, no worries. Zepto, also, hi. Hope you're doing well. It do be... Okay, yeah, I changed it to now it only shows YouTube chat. It doesn't show Twitch chat on screen. I don't know if that's like... Yeah, basically only shows YouTube chat now on screen because most people are chatting on Twitch, and I can really only put one or the other. And so I'd rather put the one that most people... Like, if most people are on Twitch, then those people are missing... Right? I'd rather cater to the... I know this... Yeah, I'd rather... If I had to pick a side, I'd pick Twitch because that's where most people are. And so I'm going to fill in that gap, and so I put YouTube on there. So if anyone wonders why I'm talking to people who you can't see in chat, that's why. Ooh, I'd be careful doing that. Twitch terms of service is very explicit about that specific factor of multi-streaming. Oh, really? Okay, well, maybe I'll get banned. Or maybe they'll give me a warning. Maybe I'll turn it off after stream. I'm not saying go... See, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying come to Twitch if you want the real chat experience. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying go to YouTube. So I don't quite know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it probably isn't perfectly allowed, but I also... Yeah, the whole... It should be fine, and if it's not, whatever. What'll they... I mean, look, people have done far worse on Twitch, and they'll get a, you know, a warning or something, or maybe a 24-hour ban. That's fine. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will try to find a new solution. Yeah, no, streaming on multiple platforms is fine, but there's a lot of rules around what you do with chat. And also, just because lots of people do it doesn't mean that's not an argument for it being fine. But yeah, no, streaming on multiple platforms is fine. That is an okay thing to do. Even according to Twitch, that is perfectly allowed. But what's not allowed is, for sure, mixing chats. So you aren't supposed to have chats combined together on one screen. And I think probably you're not supposed to have another platform's chat on Twitch. I don't know. I actually didn't know about that until Skittle just said it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that were true. I think their reasoning kind of was like they don't want people to be incentivized to leave Twitch, right? You're definitely not supposed to, like, you know, have a Twitch stream that says go to YouTube to chat, right? That's totally unallowed. But I'm kind of doing the other way, right? I'm basically saying if you want to chat, go to Twitch, because that's where the people are. Yeah, but there are strict rules about chat, but yeah, like you said, a lot of people break these rules, and you know, I'm not too worried about it. I definitely am not claiming that it's okay because a lot of people break them, but I would argue that if a lot of people are breaking them, they probably aren't enforcing it. Which, you know, do with that information what you will. Just, you know, it doesn't mean it's okay, but it is a thing to maybe consider. Like in my case, I think there's a very real problem, which is it's hard for people to know who's talking. And so a solution to that very real problem is to do what I did. And if that's against terms of service, it might be, it might not be. I'm not making the claim because I genuinely don't know. I think it probably is, though. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to plead ignorance for now. Bans merely increase the streamer's popularity anyway. Means you're a rebel. Yeah, right? There are some rules, and maybe I'm being a hypocrite here. I don't think I am. I think, like, I don't think rebels are always wrong, right? I think rebels are good generally. Maybe not generally. Sometimes rebels are good. But I think a lot of rules are purely out of Twitch's fear of people, like, of them losing popularity. And then others are, like, very real issues, like copyright rules, right? I think if you're breaking things like copyright laws or copyright rules, which maybe I am also a little bit. But like, I think those are far more justified bans, or when you take action against a streamer who is, watching the full version of Lord of the Rings on their, on their stream. Like, I think if they get banned permanently, I think that is perfectly deserved. They knew they were breaking the rules. They did it anyway. Like do whatever, right? Ban them, time them out, give them a 24-hour ban, give them a warning. I don't care, but like, I don't think anyone's going to argue that person didn't deserve it, right? Like, if you're breaking an obvious rule with a very real reason. But I think some rules are just absurd, right? I think especially back in like, all of their wishy-washy like nudity rules where they would say no nudity. That's where I think if you break a rule, like, maybe break the rule and risk getting a timeout or a temporary ban. And like, if there's a 3-strike policy, I think that could be a rule worth pushing if people are if the logic in the rules is inconsistent. Like, I think it's fine to rebel a little bit. I'm not typically a rebellious one, but there are lots of rules that I think are just absurd. I think the Twitch chat rule is absurd because I think that's just them trying to like stay in control of their platform, but so they're drawing this big line in the sand that is kind of arbitrary, and like it could actually there. Gosh, this reminds me of well, no, it doesn't remind me of that. Never mind. Use StreamerBot, right? I can give you a handy multi-chat widget that combines everything together easily. Oh, I have a chat that I have a chat that combines everything together. I'm using it right now. This is what I use. It's just not on screen. This is my combined chat, right? There's YouTube right here. There's you right here, right? YouTube, Twitch, it even shows me a thing next to it. So this is what I see, but I'm not allowed to put this on screen. I can't put this on Twitch chat. That for sure is against terms of service, right? If I have this on my screen over here as like pinned, the only thing, because of all the things I've read about Twitch chat, is that putting a combined chat on screen like this is absolutely not okay. I didn't know that only having YouTube was not okay, but now that I know that. But yeah, I'm using StreamerBot. Yeah, I don't mind I'm just talking about combining it, or are you talking about combining it for chat or for on stream? But I also some people have expressed concerns with chat on Twitch where like they don't actually want their chat to be shown. So I kind of like it that there's a place where you could chat and it's not shown. And maybe that could be YouTube. But again, I don't want to push people to YouTube, right? I would rather push people to Twitch. So I don't really want to do it the other way. I don't know. I don't think it matters too much. Oh, gonna restart the playlist because yeah, it's an annoying balance. Yeah, exactly. And it's not making the streams better quality, right? I think when you have an arbitrary rule that isn't for legal reasons, and also it's just forcing streamers to make choices that hurt their stream and thus would arguably hurt the platform, right? Because if you have a bunch of good quality streams and people want to go to those streams, that's going to make your platform better, right? You're not helping yourself, in my opinion. And it's their prerogative. They can make stupid rules if they want. But I think that's where a little bit of rebellious action is okay. And I'm willing to, yeah. I mean, I don't even, I'm not even, I will have to double check the rules after, because I'm not 100% sure on that one, the one that I might supposedly be breaking. I will check after stream though. But I still stand by that. Sometimes I think rebelling is okay. Just because it's a rule doesn't mean it's a good rule. It can be some rules are very stupid, and yeah. And I think it's been pretty clear, if I'm just going to continue making my point, I think it's been pretty clear that Twitch is bad at setting their where that line is, right? They are not consistent. They've flipped, especially on like their rules around. I mean, I'm going to just go back in history here, right? Their rules around nudity or sexual content, or what is allowed or what isn't. Is it cartoon nudity allowed, or is it only human things? What about VTubers, right? This line that they seemingly, cannot make up their mind. Swimsuits aren't allowed unless you're sitting in a pool, right? That whole thing was an entire Twitch meta popped up because their rules were so stupid you could just get around it by sitting in a little tub, right? Like, how is that? You're not helping yourself when you have shown time and time again that you cannot make your intent clear, right? Instead of trying to explain the spirit of the law, they just are trying to explain the letter of the law, and they fail miserably. And so I think when you have a history of being this bad at making rules and constantly going back on them because people realize they're dumb, I'm not taking a random rule that feels this absurd to me or this arbitrary as like, I have to follow it perfect. No, I think there's some wiggle room. And there's a lot of like, just, I don't know. I think that's a dumb rule. I stand by that. Obviously, if, again, there are literally, like, yeah, if they start taking action, then obviously I don't want to get banned, If it's that or I get banned, then obviously I don't, I will not do it, right? But if they're just flexing their muscles saying, look how much power we have, we are Twitch, do as we say, then like, if there's no thought or logic put behind those rules and they're enforcing them with an iron fist, then like maybe I will just move. So I feel like their intent needs to be clear. I don't know, maybe this is the same way that I am with art also. Like, I actually don't care what the outcome is on a lot of things, right? This is the same with, or businesses, where like, I don't care if a business succeeds or fails. I more care about the process by which they're succeeding or failing, right? Like, if you're doing a bunch of criminal activity or terrible practices and screwing your customers over, maybe you deserve to fail, right? Like, I'm not gonna feel bad. And the same thing with art, right? I'm much more process over outcome. Do a good process. I don't know, like, whatever happens, happens. But to me, the process of this weird, like, here's what you can have on screen, here's what you can't, because it feels like they're jealous or something. I don't exactly know. I don't really get the logic. The process there is just not super clear. So, yeah, anyway. That's my ramble about Twitch drama that I honestly didn't expect, because normally I'm like responding to things that are happening, and that's not like a new thing. That's just like a thing. Yeah, Twitch's consistency is dumb. Yeah, they have really bad. They have really bad consistency. Well, our draws. Welcome to the gulag. If you survive, you earn your freedom. I don't quite know what that is relating to, but maybe that relates to the topic, because it does feel like I don't exactly understand, to be honest. But hello, hope you're doing well. Nothing really? Okay. I mean, it probably does, but I might just be dense and not understand. But yeah, I hope you're doing well. How's the day going? Yeah, I really don't like to, ruffle feathers and cause drama or anything. But I will say when it comes to Twitch rules, also just, you know, I know this isn't an argument for doing things, uh, but like, I don't think Twitch is paying attention to the art streamers with 50 viewers. Just saying, we basically don't exist. So, yeah, I'm not too worried unless I talk about it too much and they have like some AI detection that detects me talking crap about them, and then they tune in. But yeah, no, I'm not too worried about it. Hydrate. Oh, thank you. There's a sticker thingy on the bottom. How did that? It was the... There. Also, my tea is cold. I got it before stream, so it's almost gone too. If Twitch ever implemented a detection system for people talking crap about them, I'm screwed. Really? Do you talk a lot of crap about Twitch? I didn't know that. Like, I sometimes will lurk in your stream, but I'm typically a genuine lurker. Like, I'm not even at my keyboard. I'm just, the screen is up and I've gone away to like get food and stuff. So most of the time when I'm in your stream, I'm not actually listening that much. But yeah, I didn't actually know that you talk crap about them a lot. Oh, with the current situation the world is going, I think we are dead. Okay, yeah, I mean, it can be depressing. I don't know, this is a nice... You know what? This is where we put our heads in the sand and make some art and just have a good time, That's what this stream is supposed to be. Not really, but it could be. There's no end to the amount of crap I talk about every big corporation. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. Big corporations are... I think, you know what's funny? So, bridging what Skittle's saying and what RD Draws is saying, I think if in like an objective sense, there's so many bigger issues to like rant about. But I feel like in all of this, right, in all of the craziness in the world, I feel like Twitch and art and these things are like, these are the spaces that could be like those sort of like the saving grace kind of, right? Like the safe space for people and like the good parts of the world, And I think there's something that makes me even more frustrated when those parts are also becoming like being run poorly, right? Like this is a place for entertainment, it's a place for all these things, and yet like it almost makes me more angry for things like Twitch or corporations doing stupid things to screw over their customers for basically no reason other than maybe a little bit of money or what they think is worth doing. Like those things almost make me more angry than like the big world issues. Like the big world issues, they absolutely are more important, right? Like undeniably so. And so there's an argument like, well, why am I not talking about those things? But yeah, it's P.S. I can rant about anything like TED Talk. Oh, I mean, people have said that my streams are Jed Talks. Joe, Casey Snow. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but J is for Joe. The Jed Talks. But yeah, no, I love ranting, rambling, whatever you want to call it. One of my favorite pastimes. But yeah, it's... I talk crap about them all the time because I care so much about... Yeah, I care a lot about... Exactly, I care a lot about Twitch. I care a lot about the platform. I care about the communities. And yet, to see these things being whittled away at because Twitch makes stupid choices, it really does, like... It bugs me a little bit. Like, more than other things. Not really more, but... Don't forget about the government. Yeah, I try not to talk too much politics on stream. Although I already talked about religion today, so there's that. No, I try not to talk about politics on stream. I think it's just a good topic to avoid because, one, this is not the place where anything is actually going to happen, right? We're not making change in that regard. I think in terms of Twitch, we are making change on Twitch because we are streamers on Twitch. We are users, right? We are, like... So it makes sense. Like, we can actually maybe make a change. What are we talking about? Drama. No. Just big corporations making changes, rules, regulations that don't help their users in any way, that just make their lives more miserable. And I was talking about Twitch and their arbitrary, maybe not arbitrary, but seemingly arbitrary rules about you can only have... They basically said, go ahead, multi-stream all you want. You know, we are totally in support of multi-streaming. We think people should be able to choose where they stream, and, you know, we support that. But you must have chat in this very particular way. You cannot put YouTube chat on screen. You have to have Twitch only on Twitch, and you have to do all these things, or else you can get banned. And it's like all these arbitrary rules to make... to try and make Twitch like the primary stream, right? They're trying to like arbitrarily force it to be better by basically making rules to make other people's streams worse if you're multi-streaming. So like if you're multi-streaming, Twitch's rules basically force you to lower the quality of YouTube or raise the quality of Twitch, but they basically can never be equal, right? If you want to do certain things to make Twitch better, you can't apply those same to YouTube, or vice versa, kind of. And that's annoying, right? That is not it's not because they care about the streamer, right? They just want their Twitch streams to be seen as a better product. So yeah, am I using Windows 10? I am using Windows 10, which support will be for another year because you can extend it by literally a click of a button that is just in your menu. I don't know if you knew that or not. Support ended on the 14th, except you can just go and extend it. I don't know if you can do that anymore, but yeah, you literally can just go into your system settings where it says Windows 10 support, and there will just be a thing that says extend support for a year, and you click it and it's like done. It's that easy. And it's like, why don't they just offer, like, rather than, I don't know, I could rant about that. I could rant about Microsoft. I'm not going to. Also, thank you guys for the follows. I appreciate it. I like how the drama stream. No, not real drama. Next year's the final year technically. Yeah, until they realize enough people haven't and won't upgrade because of financial issues, and then they're like, oh gosh, maybe we're liable for this, or maybe we have a responsibility to, like, you know, not do this simply to cut costs. Anyway. But yeah, I did extend my year. Skittle didn't mean to at Frostern. Also, I'm just playing around with color palettes. I haven't done any real thumbnailing yet. If anyone has any art-related topics, though, feel free to throw those in chat, because, you know, we have been ranting about other stuff a little bit. Hey, how are you, dude? Says Kuno. It's been a while. I haven't joined your lives now. It's been a while. I haven't joined your lives now. Well, hello. Welcome in. Hope you're doing well. I am doing good. My day is nice. We are ranting a little bit, just having a good time, painting some stuff. I'm doing some vertical paintings today. I normally do horizontal stuff, but it's kind of fun. It's fun to mix it up a little bit. Although it's not too much. It's still very much in my comfort zone. But yeah, I'm just trying to put some color blobs down. Play around with composition. It's not so much composition. Play around with color palettes. Skittle says, my general art-related topic thing is I'm going to try and do at least one out of my comfort zone sketch every day from now on. When you say a sketch, how much is a sketch? Because I think one sketch a day is manageable. Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing to try to aim for, right? Why is this? What has happened with this brush? Let's do a smudge brush. There we go. Nothing refined. Okay. Yeah, I think it's good to get out of your comfort zone sketches. I haven't been doing a ton of that, not as much. Although I will say stuff like this was a little bit out of my comfort zone, right? Doing like more, you know, like somewhat no, maybe not accurate. Accurate might be a stretch, but somewhat accurate referencing of a thing and, you know, really changing it, you know, an upside down boat, which is not a thing you can find a good reference for. You know, the boat is based on a very particular type of boat. You know, there's some design and storytelling going on with boat stuff. There's a shipwreck, right? There's some stuff going on, and I thought this was a nice painting. I thought this was a little bit out of my comfort zone. I learned quite a bit. I had fun. I also, you know, I ended up cropping the painting. Well, you can't see it, but basically the painting extended further up quite a bit. And so there's some compositional stuff that I'm, you know, wanting to do more things that sort of break the picture frame that are a little larger. So yeah, I've really been enjoying what I've been doing lately, and I think, I don't know if pushing my limits or out of my comfort zone is quite the right way to describe it, but I do feel like I've been growing a little bit. So I think I've been doing good in that regard. Kuno says, I might do some environmental studies as well then. I've been meaning to improve my environmental design skills, particularly on material definitions. Those were lacking in my last two environment concept art. Yeah, I don't typically do like a lot of material stuff, you know, because most of the times when I'm sketching, I leave it very rough like this, where it's like, okay, if I'm gonna do windows and stained glass, I'm literally just putting blobs of, also this is like a low resolution JPEG, but you know, I'll just put like little blips of light, or I'll put some, you know, tufts of grass that look like this, of just like little sticks and, you know, maybe some flower buds or something. But like, I'm not doing a lot, right? Right, I'm not doing a lot of material stuff and textures and all that. It's very much just basic forms with a little slap of lighting on it. So yeah, I don't do a lot of material rendering. I should probably do more of that as well. That would be a good thing to do. Oh god, an upside down wreck boat was your exam assignment from last year. Goodness, I'm traumatized. Yeah, I mean, this I wasn't super accurate, because this was still just like a random sketch, essentially, that I kind of refined. But it was... And it's a little hard to tell it's an upside-down boat, because it's, one, not drawn super well, and the style of the boat is a little bit niche, I think. So it's not... It doesn't have that, like, iconic upside-down boat look, you know? But there's probably some things I could have done better to make it look like that, like put a different color here. But anyway, it was a fun painting. I enjoyed that one. But these are very much just idea explorations. I don't have a theme or a concept in mind. Just going with the flow.
Maybe some brighter lights up here. Maybe some like yellowish lights really poking through. Almost, whoops, almost like if it was a vine. How do you tackle choosing your colors to convey your mood atmosphere? I mean, so I don't know if these are good examples of it, but a lot of it, I think it's just more thinking about lighting. So lighting and atmosphere, mostly. So like if you have mist or something, you know, let's say this was a waterfall painting. It wasn't really going to be, but let's just say it was. You know, maybe you have, you know, shimmers of red and other colors poking through here. Maybe, you know, maybe there's a, you know, like, so the lighting of shimmery water might say there's some rainbowy colors, you know, spanning throughout here. You know, maybe there's also there's going to be a lot of mist, so a lot of this light is, you know, there's going to be softness to it. So maybe I put some softness in here, and like just that process of blending and adding the light. You know, is the light going to be direct? Probably not if there's a lot of mist. So maybe there's, you know, maybe we blend this stuff and make it a little softer here. You know, maybe, which is the same if we had lighting in here, right? This light is also going to be soft because it's not going to be, you know, we don't have that hard light. Whereas if it were a different mood, we might have, you know, these super bright, you know, light coming in or something. We aren't going to have that probably if it's like a misty waterfall, right? Because there's going to be a lot of light being blocked out from all the mist. And so a lot of it's just like how you manage values and it's really not, to me, it's not so much about colors. It's more about just values and maybe temperature and how much light. Is it direct light? Is it softer? You know, is there a lot of atmosphere? You know, is it foggy? Is it gray? If it's gray and foggy, that's going to make you think of like a rainy day maybe. You know, if it's bright and foggy, that might make you think of like a sunset, you know, coming through the mist, a morning or something, right? If it's dark and foggy, that, you know, you might think of like, well, night, you know, nighttime, and so maybe you'd want to include some lights in there to like poke through the fog, to like, then suddenly you get like a, you know, maybe an evening scene, or, you know, like, I don't know. I think a lot of lighting and like lighting and colors to me are just, they go so hand in hand, and it helps set the mood. You know, it's like, think of all the things you can do on a stage with colored lights and a fog machine, right? Like with those two things, and of course any sort of imagery that you can imagine, right? Blue background, all that. Like, you can do a lot with a fog machine and some colored lights. You can really set the mood. So, welcome Raiders! Chappy Art, how's it going? So yeah, I think that's just kind of how I view lighting, is sort of atmosphere, temperature, and the intensity of light. And you can do a lot there with mood. Sort of a mood-first approach, if that even makes sense. I don't know. Chappy, how's it going? Elwin Art, welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well. How was your stream? Art Tax, by the way. Also, none of these have any content to them yet. These are all just color blobs. This one, so also I think another thing with color and mood is that rather than trying, so I think there's this idea, this, I think it's true in pretty much all art, but like the thing that you start with is probably, tends to be the thing that is so, or the most grounded, right? Or the strongest, right? If you start with design, your design and shapes, right? Your design and shapes will probably be the strongest part of your painting, right? It's much harder to fit color and mood on top of a strong design and match that design, rather than if you start color and mood. Because I start color and mood, I can say this looks like an autumn scene. And then I can go and make these look like autumn trees, right? I can go in and make these look like trees without branches, because it's an autumn, and suddenly the colors perfectly fit the shapes that I've made, right? So I'm kind of doing it backwards because I'm starting... Oh, it's another double raid. Double raid. Hello. Hi, Pinguini. Welcome in. Welcome, raiders. Art Tax, if you'd like to share, you can drop a link to what you were working on. You don't have to, but if you have to raid and run, that's cool too. But yeah, thanks for coming in. But yeah, I think because I start with my colors typically, I can match the shapes and the design and the context or the story or whatever it is I want to paint. I can match that to the mood, right? I can say, this is going to be an autumn painting. Because, again, this isn't for a project, right? If this were for a project, it's much harder to do it this way. Because typically you have to start with design because you kind of already know what that's going to be. But because I don't know what my design's going to be, I can say this is going to be an autumn painting. And then I can start thinking about what kind of things might look nice or would fit this vibe, right? I already have a vibe going on because of the colors. And so now I can, maybe I want to design a little house that's old and it has, some leaves on the roof. Let's put some leaves here. I don't know what the leaves are going to look like. Maybe they're dark leaves. Right, so maybe there's some leaves on a roof of a building. And like, okay, this is going to fit now because the colors already are there, right? We already have our colors. And now we're simply just matching the color. Like, now we're just making shapes that also fit the colors, Maybe this thing is shaped like a cornucopia or like maybe there's pumpkins on the ground. Like, oh, that fits autumn. And so now we already have our colors. So now we just, put in some of the orangey on the pumpkins and it's gonna fit. Like, everything will fit pretty well. I'm not sure about the shape, but you get the idea. So I think starting that way tends to help, right? Or if you do something that's very graphical and you start with big graphical shapes, like that's gonna be a thing that you're gonna do really well with. But if you start with big color blobs, right, it's a little harder to have these super nice compositions or graphical compositions because you're not starting graphically, right? If you're starting with like nuanced and complex line work, right, you might lose that big clear graphical read. Now typically people will still like do values second, so you can typically make up for it. But that process of sort of what is ordered on top of what, right? That lower level thing, that first thing you start with is probably gonna be the strongest. And so for me, that tends to be colors and mood, which, might mean the design is lacking a little bit. No art today, but we had a very nice piano session with Pinguini. Oh, nice! That's awesome. Piano, great. I wish I had room for a piano. I guess I could get a keyboard. A small keyboard I could tuck in a closet if I'm not using. I don't know if I would actually use it though. Probably. But yeah, that's awesome. You always find yourself switching to paint and values after struggling with an hour with the colors. It just muddy, Yeah, I mean, I think when you add, that's another thing, right? Like if I wanted to paint on this, not that I don't like the colors here, but here. Actually, I don't really like the colors on any of these. Let's take this one, though. This autumn one. If I want to change the value, like, there is a point where I have to work on values, right? These values are not... Me? I don't play piano. No. I don't play piano. Penguin? No. We just got raided, and Panda from the Moon said, no art today, but we had a very nice piano session with Penguini. No, I wasn't playing piano. Not me. I've jammed on a piano a bit. I don't know. I've played, like, I've messed around and it's fun to, like, make stuff. Like, just screw around. But I don't know any music theory or anything. Just for fun, to have fun with it. You don't have to play piano before you get a piano. Just like, that's like saying, oh, I've always wanted to paint. I should get some paints. Why? Oh, I didn't know you paint. Well, I don't, but you want to get paints to paint, right? You'd want to get piano to play, not because I currently play piano. So no, I don't play piano, but it would still be fun to get a keyboard. So yeah, that's my reasoning. But yeah, anyway, welcome in everybody. Hope you're doing well. If you'd like to share, you can. And also, even if you didn't, if you came in with a rated, you can share art. You don't have to be the one who rated. Just sound like you already play the way. No, I don't play piano. I mean, so like I had a roommate in college who had a keyboard. It was fun to jam on that a little bit. I learned some stuff, but not how to play. Not really. Like maybe a few chords that you could kind of piece together and do things with that kind of, you know, hand shapes that would make things sound nice when you hit the buttons. But just having a piano has style. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I don't know if I care about that. I'm not sure how much I care about my style, but that is a fair point. It's like people who line their bookshelves with books that they've never read just so that it looks like they've read. Like, I don't care about that. I have my books on my phone in audiobook format. No one will ever see my bookshelf in terms of all the books I own because I have like 5 books on my bookshelf and I've read them all. But I have hundreds of books in my Audible app. Or files on my computer that I've downloaded. Totally legally, by the way. Yeah, I think another... We were talking about mood, though, earlier, and colors. I think another big thing... And I know everyone talks about value, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about, but less about values that read well, but more about, like, overall structure. I think that's another important thing, is like how much light and how much dark is there? Like, does this painting feel like it's 80% dark, right? That's going to have a very distinct vibe to it. Whereas if your painting is 80% light, right, that's going to have a distinct vibe to it. Even if the shapes are perfectly readable in both, that's going to change. Like, does it feel like you're walking out in the bright sunlight, or are you, you know, looking into a cozy home from the outside where everything is dark with this little spot of coziness? And I think overall sort of value structure is super important. So a lot of times, like, once I know my mood, if I know it's going to be like an autumn piece, I might think, okay, let's make it a little bit darker to, you know, make it, and maybe darker and grayer to make it feel like it's, you know, a rainy day or something, or a little bit colder. You know, maybe there's something like this. It's a bit more foggy, but it's also kind of dark, and maybe it makes it feel like it could be a little colder. So, like, sometimes there's stuff like this where I'm just, you know, I'm playing with the value structure, not so much the relationship between the values. Like, the values are more or less staying the same. I'm just simply making it darker in some spots, right? Or I'm just kind of adjusting the curves. Not technically adjusting the curves, but you know what I mean. Foxara says, maybe not a keyboard, but just having a piano has style. Well, I have lots of traditional stuff. Does that count in the same way? I mean, no. If you use the stuff, then it's like a double whammy, right? Like it's stuff you use and it looks cool because it adds to your personal style, right? I think there's something to that. I don't think it's bad to have books on a bookshelf and be like, look at all the books I mean, that's a very real effect, right? If you walk into someone's home and they have thousands of books, you're gonna be like, wow, you must read a lot, right? Even if they don't. But if they do, like, I think it's fine for that style to show through because it's true. You know, it's not fake style, it's real style. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. might as well showcase the things that you care about. If you make lots of art, put it up, you know? If you have an easel, no need to hide it away. If that's what you're talking about. Would it be okay if I send you my environment piece? I'd be happy to look at it. Yeah, you can drop a link here and share it. Or you can put it in our Discord. We have a Discord server. I'd be happy to look at it. I'm not promising a critique or anything. I don't know, you know, you might be out of my skill range and I may not have good things to say. Not as in bad things to say, but I might not know what to say, right? I just might not have anything useful to say. So yeah, important note there, but I am happy to look at it. I love looking at what people are making. Don't touch the gold. Oh, I like it. I love the shapes. Oh, this is awesome. These are great. Yeah, I definitely can't critique this. Oh, the upside down boat's so good. That is amazing. I love the upside down boat. This is so cool. Yeah, this is great. Oh, and you just posted this. That's funny that we were just talking about upside down boats. You know, this is awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing. This is super cool. But yeah, I think when it comes to color, I think also if you're doing color for something, doing some sort of like color palette sketches, like doing that, but like don't do it on the painting, do it on the side, and because you already know the mood. And I think having like a mood in mind, right? Whether it's like, oh, this is gonna be a stormy sky painting, then paint stormy skies. Don't try to match the colors to the thing because you already know what the thing's gonna be. Just do it on the side. You know, use your grays, use your blues or whatever colors. Maybe pull up some references if you need. You know, basically treat it like you would any other thing, the same way you would use references. Although I feel like with color, it's not about being accurate, right? I mean, this same is true with, I guess, like form, right? It's not really about accuracy. It's more about communication. And so sometimes pushing the color palettes that you find in a reference is useful too. So it's not really about accuracy of colors. So I wouldn't just copy them exactly, but it's more about like what is the overall vibe? Is it a dark scene? Is it a light scene? Is it warm? Is it cool? Is it foggy? Is it not? You know, how much light, what color, what temperature, that kind of thing. At least that's, I think, what I think about. That's some amazing art. Seriously. I'm inspired. That is super good. I should probably follow you. Although it requires me to sign in. Is it gonna... Please don't ask for like a two-factor. Oh, here we go. Oh, I am following you. I'm already following you. That makes sense. I'm like, I should follow you. Oh, wait, I am. Okay, perfect. Turns out I didn't have to do anything. Yeah, I am bad about using ArtStation. I haven't been using it lately. I mean, I don't know. I don't really... Yeah, it's good, though. I should use it more. Maybe we'll do some orangey lights in here. Oh, another thing. So this isn't so much like this isn't a real tip with the colors, but something that I did last stream that I really enjoyed was I did it was 2 streams ago. I did my line work with these bright red colors. And that was before I had red in my palette. So when I was doing my initial sketch, and again, this is very color blobby, but when I was doing my initial sketch, which is, where is it? I will open it right here. Right? I didn't have any red in my painting. I mean, I had purple, so it's kind of close, and I had blue, but there was no real red. So this red ended up working its way into the scene. I ended up mixing it in here as sort of like an accent color. And so just by having, and I think I could have had any color. I could have had a bright blue in here. It totally would have changed the vibe. But I could have had a blue, and if I would have worked some blue into the sky, and I could have worked some blue in here, it would have worked, like, eventually. With enough color mixing and subtle color shifts, you absolutely could get a bright blue to be working in here. So really, it's just, like, I think having that, starting very, maybe not gray, but, like, very simple colors, like in this case, it was blue and orange, and just adding in some, like, an accent color. And then from there, you start mixing and blending and allow it to poke through. And so there's some of that going on, which I think that was a fun thing to do, to use these bright red lines and have them poke through. And also work its way into the actual painting. I don't know. I enjoyed that. And kind of same thing here, right? I started with these blue lines, and I ended up using that as an accent color for this, because it sort of, as I work, right, these greens kind of make their way into the background, it makes their way into the paint, it makes their way into some of the colors. And so you have these little color notes around, and I think it's just a nice way to add an extra color. Vexchester, how's it going? Hey all, hope everyone is well. I am well. I hope everyone is well also. Have you ever thought about doing color scripting? I've thought about it. I have to get hired first for it. I've done, what I need to do is I need to do like a personal project of sorts where I take like either simple scenes, like 3D modeled scenes, and do like paint over for colors of different moods. I think that's what I need to do some of, so that I have like a standard scene and I can show it in different moods and lighting and vibes, have a different feel for each place, different type of lighting, different time of, maybe different season, that kind of thing. I need to do some of those, like a series of like 4 or 5 different takes on each scene. That way there's a consistency from like, here is a, that way it's not just like, here's a fun winter painting, here's a fun whatever autumn painting. Like being able to show that I can do the same thing in, I think that would be useful. Let's do. Also, yeah, a lot of times though when I'm painting stuff, I'm not really thinking about even specifically at this point like what is the mood. Sometimes it's more just like I am just playing with colors and I'm making it like I'm just painting until something falls into place, and then I start picking a direction, lean it there. So sometimes my process is a little backwards, which I think is really tricky. Like I don't envy people who hire artists. That process seems like a nightmare, because I could see people constantly hiring artists who aren't quite up to the job because they work in a reverse process from what you actually need. Imagine a witch tower somewhere in these thumbnails. So, Kath, I was gonna do the witch tower painting today, but I decided not to. Yeah, I decided not to today. I might do it next time. I don't know. We'll have to think about it, or I'll have to think about it. Maybe a floating
floating tower that's broken in the middle. You know, it actually, you know, we have like a pathway that goes up it, and then it has like an overhang or something. You know, some things hanging down. Of course, this needs to taper. No, I'm not. I'm not turning this into that one. But yeah, it would be funny. As usual, I love the colors you're using. Using for these. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, Kath, I do like the idea though that you have like that skulk stuff. Sorry, if you guys don't know what we're talking about. So me and Kath are in a Minecraft world, and one of the builds that we're doing is like this giant tower that with like a broken thing. It's floating, and then there's like kind of like almost like a story of like an experiment gone wrong that maybe blew a hole in the thing, and there's like this skulk and this dark color, and it's kind of like sparkly, and it's sort of like, yeah, anyway, that's there's sort of like a story or theme, and I was thinking about doing a sketch, sort of like concept art / illustration. We already kind of have the concept, but it'd be fun to do like maybe a, you know, color version of it. And so yeah, I was thinking about maybe doing that today, but I obviously am not doing that today. So maybe I'll do it next stream. Concept art of our Minecraft build. Let's do a scene that isn't just soft light. Let's do some hard light. Maybe a nice cool light. I haven't done cool lighting in a long time. Direct cool light, that's a thing. But yeah, I haven't done cool lighting in a long time. More reference never hurts? Yeah. Yeah, but I think the storytelling of it is fun. Like I was thinking about just today, you know, if we have this like broken tower, like the pieces of the broken tower on the ground, like they could be pretty big. Like we could have some big rock chunks that really actually affect, like when you're walking up to it, it would affect the landscape and stuff. And I think it could be kind of neat. There's definitely some potential in there. Also, Kath, I don't know if I ever linked that YouTuber to you. They're called Beans and Apples. Did I ever link them? Their channel is really good. You should check them out. They're these two people who have a channel together, and they have just a world that they work on, and the whole world is, they have like story throughout their world, and they constantly are doing new builds, and everything's just tied together so nicely. It's super cool, and they basically, every video is like a tour of what they've been working on, because I think a lot of they tend to work a lot off stream, and so they just have all these new builds, and that they make. Anyway, it's quite cool. I really enjoy their channel. It's pretty fun. And I feel like they're both, it's rare where I feel like you have a duo channel like that, and they're both extremely good at building. Like, absurdly good at building. And so it's always neat, because there's a lot of, like, little... I mean, it's very, like, artsy, too, right? Like, there's a lot of this stuff has to do with, like, you know, values and contrast and shape design, and, you know, so it's all the same art topics, basically, but, yeah. And I don't know if you'll be able to Google Beans and Apples, because I don't think beans is spelled the same way as beans, or nor is apples. Maybe it is, I don't know. I'll have to find it for you, though. It probably would recognize it on YouTube. But yeah, let's do like a blue mist coming in here. A blue mist.
Wait, I said I was gonna have some direct light though, didn't I? Let's do something. Okay, I got an idea. Composition. Let's bring up the like. Let's make a path. Kinda coming down here, over here, sort of in the foreground. This might be too much, and then this will be a little bit of light green, yellow. Boom. Lighting. I like that. Now, if only there was something up here. What should be up here? A tower? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe nothing. All this, there's this big path and it goes up and there's nothing here. Thank you, by the way, for the follow. I really appreciate it. All this path for nothing. No payoff. That's not ideal. I think ideally we would have a payoff out there. Or up there. But for now, this is a nice vibe painting. Trying to put some breaks in here, some cracks, or some like darker and lighter spots to show where these rock formations pop out. Maybe a little bit of shadow over here. But yeah, I think when it comes to mood in paintings, color and mood, I do think there's a lot of subtlety, I think, in composition and shape. I mean, I know this isn't new to anyone, but obviously shape language can affect the mood. I think composition affects the mood a ton. Like, are you looking up at things? Are you looking down? Do you have, paths of light that's blocking off the foreground and you're looking out of the shadows, kind of? Like, that's going to affect how a thing feels, right? Like, a child's bedroom where you have the light shining in through the cracks of the door, And then you have these big, long shadows of, like, a figure approaching or something. Like, that's going to create a mood that is not about color. It's purely about composition and story. So that's a big one. But then you also have, how dark is it? How light? What are the colors? Those also affect, like, I feel like mood's tricky because it's kind of everything, right? Literally everything can affect mood. Like, I don't think there's a single aspect of art that doesn't affect sort of how you feel about a painting. And so I think it can be really complicated because it's like a giant juggling act. It feels like one of the harder ones to like explain. And also I think every artist probably has their strengths where they rely on certain things. Like I might rely on colors and values maybe. Some other artists are going to rely on, shape design and storytelling. And so you could have a super strong story in many different ways, and or a super strong mood in multiple different ways, and it's like there's no one right way to do it. Ideally, you'd work on all of them, I guess, but yeah. Anyway, I like that painting. That's fun. I'm not sure about the shapes. This one makes me think of like a cherry blossom tree a little bit, where like you have the pinks in the tree. I don't quite know what these other things would be. Let's do, instead of dark silhouettes, let's do some light silhouettes. That's another thing I don't do a lot that I need to do more of, is like bright silhouettes. It's so easy to fall into a habit of the same old, same old. Is that what it is? Same old, same old? I don't even know what they're saying when people say that. The same old stuff. It's so easy to fall into in habits like that. Hmm. I kind of like that. And the values are terrible, so let's change that. Let's go to multiply. Let's pick a dark red, maybe. Some fundamentals of art, like perspective, for example, are very straightforward, but storytelling skills are very hard to grasp. Well, that's the thing, though, because, yeah, I mean, I think that's just due to, like, storytelling not being a fundamental. But, like, perspective is one of those things, though, that does affect storytelling, right? You say perspective is straightforward, but the decision making of which perspective do I use is not straightforward, right? Once you make a choice and you start drawing something in perspective, that's sure, there's rules to it, but like you still have to make that initial choice, and that will affect the mood, right? That's going to affect the composition, it's going to affect the mood, right? If you have something very tall, right, you have to convey tallness. Which perspective do you choose? Do you draw way in the sky looking down at it and where you can't even see its feet below the clouds? Or are you looking up and you can barely see its head in the clouds? You know, like, those are two different perspectives. You're going to draw the thing two different ways, right? There's a million different camera lenses you could use and push and pull perspective. Like, you say it's straightforward, and it kind of is, right? I agree with you, but I think the tricky part is that there's so much control over what you can do with it, and that affects those other things like mood and storytelling, right? It's, if you want to make someone feel something, the perspective is super important. Are you up high and afraid of falling? Are you a small, are you tiny and looking up at a crowd of people who's overwhelming you and it's like you're lost in the crowd? You can't get those without controlling perspective carefully. And so, yeah, I think there's, I don't know. That stuff to me is like, those are the things that I really enjoy, because it's like, there's so much, yeah, there's just so much nuance there. So yeah, I guess that's more of a storytelling aspect, but that is, as it, storytelling as it relates to perspective as it relates to storytelling, or values as it relates to storytelling, or values as it relates to like mood, which I guess is part of storytelling. Colors affect storytelling, right? Storytelling is this thing that, like, yeah, it's hard to grasp because it's every single thing touches on. This is why there's that book that I was talking about earlier today. It's called the Science of Storytelling. I think there's also an Art of Storytelling, but I don't think that, I've never read that one. But the Science of Storytelling, what I like about that book is that basically it would be the equivalent of a book called The Science of Perspective, right? And then it would say, here's perspective, and here's how perspective can affect the mood. It can affect storytelling. It can affect scale. It can affect, and it just goes along the list and hits all of the topics that, in this case, storytelling affects. So it's not just in art, but it's also in, like, in memory, right? In all these different topics around storytelling. And to me, in art, right, there's every single topic, whether it's values or perspective or, making your edges a certain way, where all of those things affect different things, right? Some of them will affect depth. If I blend my edges a certain way, it'll make it fuzzy and it kind of makes it sort of fade into the background. So if you ever want to increase the depth in your painting, you can do that, right? Or you could use values for depth, or you could use, I guess that is values, or you could use perspective to help create depth, or you could use shape design to create depth, right? Maybe some shapes are a little bit more, you know, defined up close, and maybe some shapes are less defined and they're more wiggly back further, right? And so you can create like a motif in your shape design of like, you know, you can train the viewer that when you see this shape, it's far away, and when you see this shape, it's up close, right? So like you can take any one of these parts of art, and it applies to all these different topics. And it's like that, I don't know, I love that because it's, you end up having so many tools for so many different things. Anyway, that was a rant. Because I think, I remember when I was just starting art, when I always remember there was this question I asked, and in hindsight, it's almost a nonsensical question, but it isn't. So the question related to perspective, and it was like, where do I put my eye line, right? Where's the, like, if I'm drawing, you know, every perspective tutorial said, put your eye line on the page, make a dot, and then you draw like a box, right? And it goes towards your eye line, you know, yada yada, all that stuff. And you're like, okay, great. But how do I know where to put the eye line? And I'm like, I wanted an answer. And it's like, well, of course they can't tell you that, because that depends, right? It depends on where do you want your eyes to be looking, right? Are you up high and looking out far away? Are you down low? Like where's your eyes in relation to this window that we call the picture plane, you know? Like where is that, you know? But that's not perspective. That's composition, right? That's storytelling. That's there's it's not just how to draw perspective, but it's why, right? And that was the hard question that I think I always, you know, I again, this is like an early memory is but where do I put it, you know? And yeah, it's not a question perspective can answer. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff like that, right? It's just the choices around art. The why do I make my painting light or versus dark? Why do I put the shape in the foreground to make it darker or lighter than the other shape? You know, yes, I know I need contrast, but like different types of contrast are going to do different things. Different types of shapes are going to do different things. Anyway, to me, I don't know, that aspect of art is, it's like it kind of dips its toes into sort of like human psychology, you know, where it's like you're trying to, or I guess more just communication. It's just you're trying to communicate with pictures, and it's, yeah, I don't know, fascinating. I find it fascinating. You guys may not find it as fascinating as I do, but I sure find it fascinating. Sometimes I feel like I'm like that guy who's like obsessing about like toy trains, which again, nothing wrong with trains or model trains, not toy trains, but model trains. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with model trains, but it's like a very clear, like, not everybody's gonna share that interest. I don't know. Sometimes I feel a bit like that. Okay, I don't know if I wanted to put trees there. I don't think I like that. What do I want this? We could do a little cute waterfall. That'd fit the vibe. Maybe we play with scale. Maybe these things are actually a lot smaller than we initially thought. Something like that. Okay, maybe it's time to vote. Also, by the way, I'm just going to write it and then pin it to chat because I keep forgetting to mention it. But we are doing a sketch exchange on the 25th. Sketch exchange 25th of October. I'll just stick that up there so I don't forget, or so people don't forget. Yeah, I want to make it clear. Yeah, so by the way, I'll repeat what the Sketch Exchange is, because for anybody who maybe is just hearing about it for the first time, which is probably quite a few people, on the 25th of October, we're doing a Secret Santa style Sketch Exchange. Basically, anybody who wants to sign up can. You'll have to join our Discord. There is, it's obviously free. And you can leave immediately after if you'd like. But to sign up, you think of like a Halloween themed prompt. Could be anything. Could be like dinosaurs and ghost costumes trick-or-treating or something. Just something simple. And then you enter. Basically, you just put the prompt in the channel, the sign up page. The sign up channel's not there yet, but you'll think of a prompt and you'll sign up with it. And then I will randomize the names, and I will send everybody a name, and based on whoever's name that you get, you'll draw their prompt. So, and whoever gets your name will draw your prompt, right? So it's basically like you're sketching each other's ideas, and they're Halloween-themed ideas. So that's basically it. Anyone can join. Obviously, you have to, So if you want to join, you can. But we're going to do it on Saturday, the 25th. Anyone is allowed to join. The only requirement is that you be here for it, because I don't want people, there's no homework. And if you sign up or something and you aren't here, then that means somebody isn't getting their prompt made either. So that's no fun. So it's a very casual event, but I do take the sign up thing seriously because it's always annoying. It's inevitable, but it's also annoying. But yeah, that's basically it. You sign up, you show up. Actually, show up first. Yeah. I typically don't open the sign up on... Yeah. The idea is that you do the sketch that day. You don't spend more than a couple hours on it. It happens during stream. So, if you're here and you'd like to, do a 30-minute sketch, then great, anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours. And then I share them off at the end of stream, anybody who's finished, and there's always a few late, a few people who want to add that extra polish, and so, so they get an after stream is ended, but that's fine too. But yeah, it's pretty chill. We always have about like 30-ish people sign up. But this time but I'm hoping for a bit more, because I'm announcing it quite a bit ahead. There is still no sign up like channel or anything. I'm just announcing it. I don't like to put the sign up channel up until pretty much the day of, because I don't want people to be to feel like they have to do this thing that they've committed to if they aren't actually sure they can do it. So I will start 1 hour into stream though, so that'll give people plenty of time to show up and maybe decide if they want to do it that day, and maybe see how they're feeling, if they want to sketch a thing, because it can be a little tough. You are sketching someone else's prompt. It's not always the easiest thing. You're sketching stuff out of your comfort zone, so it is a bit of a challenge, and that's kind of the point. Will you also be drawing? Yep, I'll be drawing someone's prompt. It'll all be random, so I won't know whose prompt I'm drawing. I won't know who's drawing my prompt. I have a randomizer, so even I won't know who's drawing my prompt, which is kind of fun. Obviously, it won't be a secret, though, because I'll be doing it on stream. So anybody who... If I'm drawing your prompt and if your prompt was, 2 dinosaurs in a ghost costume trick-or-treating, it'll be extremely clear that I'm drawing your prompt when I start, right? So there's no mystery there, unfortunately, for the person whose prompt I'm drawing. But, sometimes I try to, obfuscate it a little bit. I'll do, the background first, or I'll start to sketch a thing, but I'll intentionally leave it vague, and then I'll draw the other stuff. But most of the time, there's no hiding it. I think last time for, I think it was in June, maybe June or July, we did like a summer themed one, and I got a flamingo in a martini glass or something. Like flamingos, like I forgot what basically it was like a martini glass is like it was a pool, and there was flamingos in the pool. What was actually a martini glass. That was like the summer themed one that I got, and like it was pretty obvious the second I started drawing flamingos that whose prompt it was, because there was only one person who had a flamingo themed prompt, you know? So it's not, it's a little hard to keep it hidden when I'm doing on stream, but I try. But again, it's not that important. It's very casual. At least I want it to be very casual. The nature of it kind of makes it less casual, because you do have, like, you know, people being put on the spot. There's kind of sort of a time limit. Not really, but like, you know, these are just sketches. People sharing unfinished work is really, really hard for some. And again, they're not masterpieces. And so there's sort of, it from, you know, what starts as a very casual event turns into some people stressing. And I don't like that, but I don't know how to avoid it. I'm probably not selling the event very well, am I? Here's a fun casual event that you might be stressed out because of. How's it going, big dog? I don't know about big dog, but can't even choose a name. How's it going? It is going well. That sounds like a great challenge, though, to help people not stress and just draw for fun. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's, yeah, I think it's good. I think it's overall, it's a good thing. I'm always really glad I did it. Sometimes it's a little bit, you know, embarrassing for myself to like draw things that turn out maybe not very good, at least to my standards. You know, I think everybody is always a little unhappy with their drawing afterwards. Maybe not all, maybe not everyone, but oftentimes people are a little bit unhappy because, you know, it's not their best work and they're sharing it publicly, and it's like, oh, you just want to hide. But it is, I do think it's a nice thing once you've done it. You're like, I'm glad I did it. No, I don't think you'll be stressed out if you do it. I hope not, anyway. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing here. A lot of these... Let's do this. Let's change the perspective on this a bit. And the lighting. Get some nice light in here. Luckily, the event starts just after the first half of Final Hand ends, so it'll be a nice break. Oh, nice! Space Spots. Welcome in. Yeah, if you're here and you'd like to join, that would be great. I'd love to have... I mean, everyone's welcome, all mediums except AI. I don't know if you count that as a medium. I don't know what it is, but it's something. But yeah, none of that allowed. Other than that, yeah, anyone's welcome to join. Ooh-woo. How's it going, Observer? Hope you're doing well. Anyway, here's some, I think, nice little compositions. Or maybe not composition. I mean, I don't know if the compositions are nice, but the color palettes are kind of nice. Observer, how are you? How is everyone? Has anyone done any art lately? Tell me about your arting. What's people working on? Working on a piece while watching. Nice. If at any point you'd like to share, you're more than welcome to. I'd love to see it. Obviously, no pressure. Nobody needs to share. Ooh, I like this, though. I like these little... Maybe there's a way to bring in some of that blue and make it even more, like, mysterious. Okay, let's try something. I'm gonna darken this whole painting so that this blue feels a little brighter and more, like, magical. So I'm gonna do, like, a multiply layer. I'm gonna bring in the same dark red. Is this multiply? That's not multiply. Wait, what happened? Did I just set my entire layer to a multiply layer? Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Uh-oh, I think I gooped something up. What did I do? This is not correct. That wasn't like that. This definitely had some darker stuff. I've lost information somewhere. I merged my layers, but I think somewhere along the line, a lot of them got... Something happened. Whatever. No going back now. I don't know what happened. I'm pretty sure I gooped things up, but... These are just for moods, so that's fine. Ooh, K-Mousey said, did 2-point perspective for the first time. Ooh, nice. 2-point perspective's fun. I feel like everything I do tends to be a little bit 2-point perspective. Like, even a painting like this, I mean, this is pretty 1-point perspective, but, like, you know, these lines, which I didn't draw super well, like, this is kind of a 2-point perspective, you know. These are converging somewhere, you know, probably somewhere down there, and these are converging somewhere over here. And, like, technically there's a little bit of a 3-point perspective, but, like, everything, you know, unless you have everything perfectly rotated, but, like, if you rotate an object at all, you know, you're gonna have some form of a 2-point, you know, stuff will converge into areas, almost always, you know, unless it's perfectly on its edge. And even within a scene, you're gonna have rotated objects, you know? So you're gonna have stuff rotated anyway. So, like, yeah, maybe some objects will be in perfect 1-point perspective, but some are gonna be in 2. And yeah, 2-point perspective is like, yeah, just, I feel like it's the one to be most familiar with, in my opinion. It's the most useful. It feels like it's the most useful anyway, because even in 1-point perspective, you use 2-point perspective often, right? If an object rotated a little bit or something, like, you might have a lot of things being basically 1 point, but good luck. Like, if you're doing like a street view scene and it's 1 point, good luck finding a car's tires that aren't slightly skewed, you know? You're gonna use a little bit of a 2-point there when the car's tires turn, you know? Like, it's just, it's everywhere. The world around you has so many converging lines and stuff. So anyway, I don't know why I went on a rant about that, but there we go. See, I can rant about anything. Okay, let's take a look at but yeah, KK Mousey, I thank you so much for sharing. It does look great. Ooh, this is cool. This is a neat scene. Space spots. I love this. This is so good. God, that framing with the girl sitting down with the cup. I assume it's a girl. I don't know. But with the cane hanging on the sitting against the wall. That is so nice. You realize you're one halfway through and you don't know what a tree looks like? Well, the rest of... No, I think the tree looks fine, but the image looks so good. Love the composition. With the brighter wall, with the dark shadow. That's such a good composition. I love this. Super cool. Okay, let's. What are we let'sing? Let's paint with some blue. What about an overlay? This might make it too blue. Kind of magical forest vibes though, which I don't mind. I don't mind some blue. It's rare that I would have blue and yellow with yellow in the foreground. That's rare. That is the... I'm not sure I've ever done that in my life. Yellow foreground? That might look funky. I don't even know how to do that without it going really green. I don't think I could. I think I'd have to do like a red. I don't know. That's going to look funny. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull that one off. This one, I feel like we also could have a little bit of vibrancy in, pushed back in. Like a mist or something, kind of. Sort of radiating down. A little bit of a mist. I think that's a nice look. What about this one? A little bright. I'm just trying to brighten up some of these dark spots, and I realize they're all going to kind of look the same once I give it this treatment. This blue light. A lot of blue light today. This one can have a yellow light. Some yellow color. I'm loving color dodge, by the way. Color dodge is so great. It's easy to overdo it, though, but I will say I quite like it. Okay, there we go. There's some sketches. Let's merge them all together. And then we will vote. 1 second. Let me look back at chat. Okay. We'll pick one of these to work until the end of stream. I don't think I'm going to spend too long refining any of these. Just whichever one we vote on, of course. But I won't spend very long. I don't think it'll need much. Failed to save. If this message... Uh-oh. I'm running out of disk space. Let's close some stuff that I have open. I have too many windows open. Vote with 8 options. We haven't done 8 options in quite a while. Here we go. Okay, there's this. That. There's the thing. I'm going to pin this also to the top of chat. I don't know if I can pin 2 messages. I don't know how that works, actually. But there's that. If you'd like, you can click that link and go vote The voting will let me know which one I'm going to work on till the end of stream. I don't know what I want to work on. I think 1 would be fun. 2 would be fun. Maybe not 3. 5 is just chill. It's easy, I guess. 6 could be fun. I think those are the ones I'm going to vote on. 1, 2, and 6. 1, 2, and 8 are winning so far. 3 of you have voted. All 3 people have voted for number 1. So that's the thing. So far, that's in the lead. Seems like I have a pretty high hit rate. Although... Oh wait, no, 2. 2 is winning. Never mind. 1 is not doing bad either. 2 is crushing it, actually. 2 and 1 are tied. 8 is 8, 3, 6, 7. Rest in peace, 4 and 5. No love there. Understandably. What? I voted 2? I meant 2. Sorry. I meant 2. Not 1. I misread it. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe now it's no longer 100%. It also might have taken a moment. Maybe there was lag. Thank you for the follow. You like how I said thank you for the follow before I heard the sound? It looks like a haunted carnival to me. It does kind of look like a haunted carnival. I've been playing so much Minecraft lately, or maybe not so much, but a bit, and it reminds me of an abandoned village a little bit. Especially like in an acacia biome or a savanna. Savannah. Is it Savannah? Savannah? I don't know. Savannah. It reminds me a little bit of like an abandoned village where it's like has that autumny vibe, but like there's cobwebs and it's a little dark and eerie. Yeah, maybe haunted, decayed, destroyed. Number 1 is crushing it. Wait, oh, 1 and 2 are tied now. Never mind, they're not crushing it. Tied. I'm gonna just a last call for voting. If you have not voted and would like to, let me know which one to work on till the end of stream, or which one you'd like me to work on. All of them are subject to change, by the way, especially the ones that suck. Number 7, 5, 4. Those are gonna change. Actually, funny enough, 5 might not change too much if we vote on it. But like 3 is for sure gonna change. I don't like. I'm not a fan. There's something about it. I'll probably keep the thing that I think is best. So like, obviously 1 and 2, the colors will stay the same, I think. 2, the composition will probably stay pretty similar, but I'll probably do like, I think 2 is gonna actually stay the most similar. Although I may add a bit of a focal point. But yeah, something like number 7, the colors would probably stay the same. 4, I would keep the warm red colors, but composition would have to change because I haven't worked it out yet. All right, number 2 has pulled ahead. 30 seconds. 30 seconds for number 2. Going once. Going twice. Should probably just start seeing if I can save my painting now. Fantastic, it let me. That's nice. Or maybe it hasn't yet. It's trying. It's struggling. Oh no, failed to save. My computer has no space. Oh no. Okay, well whatever. No saving today. We don't need save. Actually, I can do this. Oh, here. I'm gonna. Also, I just realized you guys can't actually see number 4 and 8. I'm sorry. You guys couldn't even see the options.
and nobody let me know. I'm blaming you guys. Nobody let me know that you guys couldn't see 4 and 8. They were blocked by my camera. That was a me problem, but I like how no one even mentioned. That's okay. What's wrong with 3? The composition, I think. You didn't notice? Yeah, it's okay. To be fair, the ones that it was blocking weren't very good, so it probably, didn't actually matter. I don't think it changed the vote that you couldn't see these two. This one is just like generic. This is also, there's just blobs. That's okay. Number 2 is one to vote. So that's good. We'll work on that. All right. So the way I do this, I just save this out as a separate file, which today it may not be done because I can't save, apparently. So what I'm going to do is just merge visible, copy, paste. I did save it as a JPEG, so I do still have an image of these. But I'm just going to stretch this out, crop it. What just happened? That was weird. Maybe I flipped it? I don't know. Anyway, so there's our painting. That's what we're going to work on. So this is where I get to choose. Do I focus on texture? Do I focus on shape design? Do I focus on storytelling? All of the above. Sometimes it's tricky, But I think in this case, there's definitely environmental design, right? There's some storytelling, some shape stuff. If there's sort of a pushing of design where, like, if I have all these little not broken bits, but, these little sections here where, like, a little bit of grass is here, maybe I want to paint in the rock on this side so that it looks like it has some form to it. But also maybe I want to push that a bit more and do lots of additional little bits of, like, grassy areas that are on top of these rocks, like one here, and maybe there's one down here. And so I'm going to do all these little mini shape designs and really try to, maybe also I can do some floating ones out here. It's off in the distance. So like basically pushing the design. So taking the stuff that exists in the design that is good or that's desirable, and either like amping it up or making more of it, or basically asking myself, how far do I want that thing? Do I want it to be really heavy-handed or a little bit more subtle? And I think a lot of times with things like story or like whatever it is, oftentimes you do want it pretty heavy-handed, I find. Like if you want a, volcano that had its top blown off, you don't want to do like, you can kind of tell, you want it to be like, really blown off, right? You want the pieces on the ground and you want to show the whole destruction. You don't want to do, unless it's like, here's a thing that has been recovering for 20 years or something, But I think in general, it's quite nice to push your design so that it's very clear what has happened or what is happening in your environment. That's something I like to do a lot. Speaking of happening environment, I am, as stream's going on and I'm not painting architecture today, I'm actually getting really amped up about the book that I ordered, the How Buildings Work book. I know it's a textbook. Somebody said they used it in their architecture classes. It was required. I'm excited for it. I feel like I've been in sort of like a learning mood lately, just for random things. Like the other day at work, I listened to 3 hours of like German stories for beginners and intermediates, and just listening to German because I'm like, I feel like I should force myself to pay attention. I don't know if it did anything for me. Probably not.
but it was kind of, I don't know. But like stuff like that, I've been getting the itch to like actually learn stuff. So I'm excited that this book's gonna arrive because it'll give me something to learn. It's cool. It is. You know what's really cool though about that cat is like I'm not great at speaking German because I don't ever speak it. I mean, I technically do to my phone, but I could just mumble and it would tell me it's correct. Oh, you can bring back your cam now? Yes. Great. I could probably just mumble to Duolingo and it would tell me I got it right. Like that's how bad it is. However, I actually found myself being able to follow the stories. Like occasionally there would be a word I didn't know, but most of the time I could figure it out kind of sort of with context. But yeah, I could actually follow these stories, and so there's definitely like a listening comprehension. Oh, we Gates. I'm doing well. Hope you are doing well also. But yeah, I would like to at some point, probably not on stream. I don't want to turn this into a German thing, like me learning German stream. Also out of sheer embarrassment. No, that would be it. That's actually the part that I would need to get over is like trying to speak, trying to speak and not be embarrassed and to make mistakes because I don't have that right now because I've never been in a like on the spot really, and I'm not gonna do it while I'm talking English on stream and trying to like because I found there's this thing. I don't know if this. I assume this happens to all you Duolingo or dual bilingual people, but I found that like if I try to come up with like or say things in German like to myself, right? I'm not going to do it on stream. I've found that I have to think about what I'm going to say based on the words that I know. So like I can't just say this, I can't think in English. If I think in English, I'm going to be like I want to jaunt down to the store. I can't say whatever I want, right? I can't use a word like jaunt. Not that I would ever say that in English, but I can't use that word because I don't know it. So I have to specifically think of words that I know. So it kind of changes how I'm thinking because I'm only thinking in terms of what I can actually say, right? Like it's almost like, and this is a funny, this kind of relates to art because like if there's a concept that you're aware of but you don't have the words to talk about it, it's hard to even like think about it kind of. Anyway, it's a weird it's a weird thing where it's like, so if I'm talking in English, it's very hard for me to even like formulate the most basic of sentence in German because my brain is not thinking about the words that I'm familiar with. It's not thinking like there's no like it's a really weird feeling. Anyway, and so I feel like once I get into the flow of it, then I can sort of start formulating sentences because my brain is like in that mood. And it's very similar to almost with art for me, where when I'm thinking about art, I can just do the stuff pretty fluently. But then if I'm not thinking about art and someone asks me an art question, I'm like, oh, let me think about how, let me get back into thinking about art, It's like you're shifting from, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Let's move to Germany and buy art penthouse. Talking about learning, I'm so bummed because I have more free time than last year to work on your portfolio. Wait, you're pumped. Oh, you're so pumped. I got, okay. You're so pumped because you have more free time than last year to work on your own portfolio and skills, but I just use it to work even more on your uni assignment. Oh, maybe you did say bummed. I didn't know if that was bummed or pumped because you said bumped. I don't know what bumped means. Speaking of language, but I just used it to work even more on your uni assignment, which wasn't the purpose of it. Oh, yeah, I could see that. I wish I would take that time to improve your other skills. Gotcha. Yeah, it's hard. Time management is difficult. Oh yeah, nice. Listening to the language or watching videos in that language helps so much. Oh, does it? Okay, I assumed it would. I don't really know though, because I'm not. It's one of those things where I feel like it would help listening, but it probably won't help speaking. Like I definitely think it's gonna, because the thing. Oh, also speaking of listening to stuff, if you go on YouTube and type in like German stories for beginners, 90% of it is AI. Maybe 99% of it. I genuinely don't know if I found a single one, but luckily on Spotify I found one that was like 5 years old, and it was like an actual person speaking, and you could hear them like take breaths and stuff, and it was someone who was very clearly a native German speaker, or at least I think so, because they had quite the accent, which was really nice because like you I actually had to pay attention because it was not it wasn't. I mean, the vocab and the stories were meeting me where I was at, but the speaker themselves was just talking like a German speaker, and they were reading a story. But they would get like, as the story picked up pace, they would kind of like, there was some excitement, and so there was like tonality in the way they spoke, and it was, exciting or sad, or depending on what the story was happening. When the characters were talking, they would sort of be expressive in that way, and so that was cool. It was nice to listen to the people speak. So I don't know if it'll actually help me, but it was fun. I'm sad basically, but that sounds dramatic. I get it. But yeah. I would recommend you like German YouTube channels to help, but I think I only consume English media now. Yeah, I mean, who was it? Was it you who was recommending? I mean, it's in English, so it's not really a German channel, but there's the Felly from Germany. Is that the? I think that's the name. So that's been a fun YouTube. That has nothing to do with that has nothing to do with speaking German though. But that's a YouTube channel. Yeah, no, it would be nice to have some. It would be nice to have some German-speaking channels. The struggle is that if it's not specifically geared towards beginner, I think it's Felly. Hold on. I think Rona or you or somebody recommended some video from them. I think it's Felly from Germany. It's a YouTuber who makes videos about like differences between cultures, kind of, and random things. It's just like fun, stupid videos, sort of. I don't know. I haven't really watched much of them, but there was a video a while back. I think it's where the random fact of there are more castles in Germany than there are McDonald's in the United States. It's where that fact started, I think. And it's actually true. I mean, kind of, sort of. Depends on how you define castle. But there are more castles in Germany than there are McDonald's in the US. And anyway, I think that's where somebody had said that, and that didn't sound real, and so I googled it, and it led me to them because they were talking about it. And then there was other channels also talking about it, and they were like doing the math and like trying to get to the bottom of it. Is it true? And it basically is, because like there's surprisingly not that many McDonald's in the US. I mean, there are, but like compared for how big the US is, there aren't that many. And there's like, yeah, that was you. Yeah, that was you. So you sent that channel. Or maybe you sent the fact, but I looked into where it came from, and it came from them. Or as far as I can tell, it came from them. I don't know if it actually did, but they certainly covered it. I think it came from them. But anyway, so I was looking into it just to verify because it didn't sound real. So yeah, that's how I discovered them. I was fact checking the thing that you I was just double checking it for myself to see if it because it didn't sound real. But I figured it probably was. Anyway, it led me to them, and it was kind of a fun channel.
But yeah, no, I don't have any German language speaking YouTube channels to follow because it's hard to find one that isn't AI. I'm sure there are some. I think if it, I wouldn't be surprised if like in a year or two, you know, given that I'm very casual at language learning, if in a year or two I get to the point where I could just start following like basic news channels, you know, just like basic news stuff, you know, happenings in the world. Uh, but right now I'm not at that stage, right? I'm at the stage where like if you're not talking about, you know, the handful of random topics, you know, travel, eating, learning, those kinds of things, you know, money, anything to do with buying stuff. Like, if it's not those topics, I'm probably going to be pretty lost because I don't know that many words. But in terms of like just verbs, I feel like I've yesterday or yeah, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. I looked up like the top 100 most common verbs in German, and I think I knew like 90% of them, or at least I was familiar with them. Whether or not I could recall them well is a different story. But like I had, at some point, I was supposed to have learned them in Duolingo because I was familiar with them. And I thought that was pretty cool. So like talking about doing stuff, I feel like I can, you know, I don't always know exactly, you know, when it's just random objects that you're talking about. Like I wouldn't know all the things, but I can pick up quite a bit. So yeah, it's been fun. That's been my you know, just a thing I've been doing on this side. But I might pick up the pace. I don't know, maybe not. Some people watch cartoons or children's shows. Yeah, so there was some children's book narration thing that I listened to a couple years ago. I don't know what channel it was, or about a year ago, I guess. But nowadays they're all like narrated with AI, and it sucks. But yeah, I think children's cartoons or shows would be good. Yeah, that would be good. Anything for children probably is something that I could maybe grasp, although probably probably not. I'm pretty sure I'm like a lower than like a kindergartner in language learning skills. But that's okay. Pick up the pace. Yeah. You can order your schnitzel on your own. Probably order a schnitzel on my own. I feel like for me, confidence would be the big thing because there's second guessing and like I'd likely use the wrong word, and then I would be like, "Is that the right word?" And I'd be afraid to even say the word, even though I'm like 80% sure it's the right word. But there's still a 20% chance I'm gonna just say the wrong thing, and it's not gonna, you know. But like I need to get over that. But I think that's something. Okay, to shift this back to art, I think that's something a lot of artists struggle with too, right? It's like you're not quite confident in your skills to feel like you are there yet, and so you kind of have this like freezing feeling of, you know, like I don't want to share my work, I don't think it's good enough, it might be, but I don't really know, I'm just trying my best. And it's like it's kind of scary. I think I assume it's very similar. I assume it's a similar feeling. But there's definitely something to be said about just jumping in and just doing it. Uh, Kuno says, I'm not learning German, but I wish I could speak Dutch. And dude, I came across the weirdest TV show while learning the language. That was wild. Yeah, I don't know any Dutch, I don't think. I mean, maybe maybe words that I'm somewhat familiar with, but I wouldn't even know them as being Dutch. Just like I think there's a lot of words like that where there's like random words that I'm kind of familiar with, but I don't even know what language it's in. Do you guys have anything like that, or do you?
Like I couldn't tell you the word, but like sometimes there are words, especially with like foods, where like, oh yeah, I know what that is, you know, but I don't know where it comes from. I just kind of know what it is. And to me it's like it might as well be the English word for it because I've never heard it elsewhere, you know? Like cross-cultural words kind of. I don't know if I know any Dutch words like that though. Okay, what if... I'm thinking about the painting now. What do I want to do? Maybe push the shapes a bit more. Push the shapes. More floating things. I do want to make sure that the shapes that I have here are also the same shapes that I have back here, kind of. Like, it doesn't have to be the exact same, obviously, but I want the similar shape language. And I think this is a good spot to do it. So, like, I have these sort of floating things, so maybe these are, like, this shape, you know? Instead of being just pillars. But then there's also these pillars that go upward. Like this, which are very real in this painting. So we want some of that. Stuff like this. Little pillar here. Okay, what if I do a different brush? Just for fun. Okay, I haven't used this brush in ages. I think, what do I want to... Is there a reason I'm using this brush? I think maybe like painterly textures, kind of. Kath, I don't know if you're still here, but was it you who talked about you didn't know what the word painterly meant? Was that you who said that? Because like it's a weird word and everybody uses it. Somebody was saying that. That was a while back, like a couple months ago. Or maybe more than that. Like, what does that even mean? Was that you? Somebody was saying that, and it was funny because we had some good discussions about like is my art painterly and what does painterly even mean? Isn't everything painterly? Or maybe that was Sarah. I don't know. Oh, I can't remember who said it. All right, let's add some blurring. See, I think this could actually be finished because it's just like a very simple concept of floating islands. But I think there's also probably more we can do. But let's try to only focus on the focal points here. Like, what is this? What are we actually doing here? Maybe we push the scale a bit. It was a fascinating conversation. Painterly, still unanswered. What's at the top? Up here? Like, up here at the top? I don't know. Nothing. Literally nothing. Maybe there should be something at the top. Or did you mean this? Yeah, I think Painterly is just like, to me, it really is like, are there brushstrokes visible? But also, there's a common trends in Painterly work, which is like shapes get merged. But I don't think merging shapes is the only requirement. But I feel like if you have something that's very graphical, it's not typically painterly, right? So I think there's something to do with like shapes, right? Are the shapes composed of solid lines, or are there actual brushstrokes that make up those shapes, right? And a lot of painterly things will have shapes that merge in like the shadows or the light, and that's where the shapes start blending together with brushstrokes. I think that's a pretty big hallmark of painterly stuff. But really, it's just like, are brushstrokes visible? And are the visible brushstrokes purely texture, or is it also like the things that compose the line or the shapes? So not just like lines. I feel like if you have line work that the lines make the shapes, then it's probably not painterly. Although, if you could have painterly with lines, I don't know. It's there's not a clear thing, right? It's not always clear. Raygiana, did you mean what was at the top as in what was like up here? Or did you mean what was all this stuff? Foxology rated, hello! Foxology, hello, hello. How's it going? Is it clear that these things are floating in the background? And not just things that are like a weird pattern? Like, is that clear? I think it's clear. It should be clear. Foxology, how's it going? I was also doing art and wanted to show my peeps your stuff. Well, welcome in, peeps. How is the stream? Is there a loot chest? There's probably a loot chest. You know, this reminds me a little bit of like the jumping puzzles in Guild Wars 2. There's probably a chest up here, but in true Guild Wars 2 fashion, you can't actually see the chest, and you don't actually know it's there until you embark on the journey to get there. And then good luck, because also it might be over here and you don't know, because they don't tell you where your objective is. So yeah, there's probably a loot chest somewhere. But good luck finding it. So what kind of art were you doing, Foxology, and would you like to share that art tax? I'd love to see. Kuno says, I don't really agree. I'm a big fan of the graphic reduction style, like Rupel, Zach Retz. Yeah, Zach Retz is great. I'm using Zach Retz's brush. Patrick O'Keefe artwork. I personally would call it painterly still. Well, yeah, I just don't know. I mean, that's the thing, right? There's not a clear boundary between what is and what isn't painterly. I feel like when I look at it, I know what painterly is, but it's harder to define because there's not one definition, and there's some people who are more on one side than another side of the definition, and there's like seemingly no overlap, but they're both painterly. I don't know. It's hard to define. Are links okay? Yep, links are great. Let me just add this, make a new layer, click some art tax. Ooh, I love it. That is so cute. Adorable. Also, I love the pinkish, and also you got that light coming through the ear, got that subsurface scattering. Also, love the design on like the ear piercings. This is super cool. It's still only a work in progress, but it's almost there. Yeah, it looks like you're almost done, or you're definitely approaching it. You know, the hand is still a blocky shape. But honestly, the fact that you first rendered the focal point, like you rendered the face, You almost don't even notice that it's a work in progress. Tyranny should turn out amazing. It's Oh, okay. Kath knows Tyranny. She's a character from Critical Role. Her name is Tyranny. Is that from the new season? I told myself I kind of wanted to start listening to the new season, but I haven't. This is super nice. Really nicely done. Amazing work. Thank you so much for sharing. It's the best time to get since it's entirely fresh. Yeah, I know it is, and that's why I need to like get my butt in gear and do it. I just need to force myself. I've always really struggled to get into Critical Role for some reason, which I don't like. I like D&D and I like it in theory. It's just hard for me to get into. Okay, I don't know if like this. I'm trying to add some dark occluded areas, but really it's not too heavy-handed. You just started watching tabletop RPGs recently. I'm following one specific campaign, but I would like to watch more. Yeah, everyone says Critical Role is like, it's so popular, but for some reason it's just been, I don't know, it's always been hard for me to get into it. I do think though, like most things, once I get into it, I would like it. But it's sometimes there's like a learning curve, or like even just like being familiar with the voice actors can help, because then you can just enjoy them being themselves, or their characters, right? But like if you don't know who these people are and it's harder to follow, and maybe there's some, it just, I don't know why, but it's just hard sometimes. Thank you for the follow. Hope you're doing well. Also, don't forget to hydrate. Okay, I'm trying to think about how or what I want to do these darker shadows. I'm pretty confident that I want them darker. But I'm trying to figure out how dark and in what way. Like, I don't think I want it like that, right? That's too dark. Also, what's happening with this shape? That's not right. So let's do this. We'll lighten that up. We will make this darker, but before I do that, I'm going to figure out this. I'm going to figure out these shapes right here. You gotta go get food? Yeah, no worries. Take care. Thanks for popping in. Thank you for bringing your community over. But yeah, I guess an introduction to myself for anybody who's just coming in. My name's Joe. I paint environments, almost entirely environments, but I'm not opposed to painting other things. Not really. I just don't typically do that. But yeah, I paint a lot of environments. I generally start every stream and do kind of a new painting each stream. Do a lot of thumbnail sketching, ID exploration. I think today, let me save this real quick. See if it'll let me save now. Been having an issue with my computers not being able to save stuff due to low memory. Which is okay. Oh, it saved. Great. Okay, let me show you what I normally do. So today, for example, I did a series of sketches. Nope, those weren't today's. These were last streams. But doing a series of sketches, and then we pick one, and then we work on it till the end of stream. So this was the sketch that we did, and then we worked on it, and it turned into this. So this is the painting that we did. This is the sketch. So we do a lot of stuff like this. A lot of thumbnailing, a lot of idea sketching, just going, 5 unrelated concepts, or just little ideas. And then sometimes we do, here's 5 more that we did the day before. They're all totally different. This one's just mountains in like a sunny day, more realistic colors. This is who knows what with not very, lighter materials. This is some sort of weird, creepy thing with a sunset. This is random building, also sunset. More random buildings, and we ended up picking these random buildings, right? And then we worked on them till the end of stream, and this is where we ended up. So, yeah, we do a lot of that stuff. A lot of just environments, backgrounds, whatever you want to call them. They're not really backgrounds because they're not for anything. They are their own painting. So I would just call them environments or landscape paintings, but fantasy landscapes, whatever you want to call them. I like the term environments because it doesn't exclude interiors, which occasionally I'll do. So they don't have to be landscapes. Yeah, I get it. For the one I'm watching, it's actually a group of improv comedians you've been following for a while, so that was exciting. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that would make it easier, I think, to get into if you were already familiar with some of the people. That was my issue with listening to it. I didn't know the characters well enough or the people well enough to know when they were talking who was talking, right? Like, I couldn't just listen to it because I didn't recognize their voices. And, like, some of them, it's like two guys talking, and I honestly, like, their voices are different, but not different enough for me to be like, that's who that is. Or like, if someone says a name or something, I won't even know who it is, right? I don't know their names. I don't know the character names. Sometimes they'll randomly say something, like they'll break character because they're talking about something, and they'll name drop the person, like the actual actor, and I'll be like, who is that? Who's Sam? I don't know who Sam is. I don't follow. Like, I'm new to this, and it's very hard for me to get into the point where I can just follow the conversations. And so it's tricky. It's tricky, but I think I another try and I'll get into it, I think. Okay, so we've reconciled this area. I didn't like that this just didn't connect. But now that we've reconciled that, it did brighten up the scene, but now I want to darken up the scene again. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm tempted to do an overlay. I don't think this is the right move, because if I do an overlay, it's going to make it more saturated. And I don't know if I want these to be more saturated. This is a thing we could do. And I'm actually just going to see what happens if I mean, this actually isn't that bad. It does look pretty good. That's actually not bad at all. See, that was an unintended consequence of me not even thinking about atmospheric perspective, but the fact that it's more saturated in the foreground and less saturated in the background is like a good thing, because that fits with the vibe of atmosphere so well. You could even add a little bit more if we wanted, especially up here. Okay, now now that we've got that sorted, I think that's much better. right? It really pushes those darks in. But I do think we can probably come in here. I don't know if this is good, but yeah, I think just adding some brightness up here on like some of these that just kind of got caught in the crossfire of me adding dark to stuff. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a new layer, and I'm going to paint directly over the top of this. And kind of reshape design this. Maybe make some of it brighter. Like some of these things are not very well defined. Also, like, what is it, right? Is this grass? And if it is, are we going to have little bits of grassy area, you know, fall over the edge? Like, does it need to be perfectly... Like, shouldn't there be some brush strokes like this that kind of cross over? Like, why would this thing be so perfectly straight, right? And so maybe we do have a little bit of edge, you know, some shapes and lines. You know, some grass poking down here. Sort of little tufts of grass, maybe like a little tiny one down here. You know, same here. This could go off the other end, so maybe we get some of these shapes to be carved out. And that's kind of what I want to do, is just give this a little bit of treatment around the edges, some of the shapes, figure out what shapes I want them to be. You know, play around with that stuff. You know, like here, maybe there's some additional shapes there, but then if, you know, I gotta make the shapes look nice, or else it'll end up looking like a face or something that I don't want it to look like. I also don't want too many small edges, right, or too many small shapes. So I want a nice mix of, like, maybe some medium shapes. And maybe I add that here. Maybe not. But yeah, I really enjoy this kind of painting where there's, it's not, you know, it's a little bit alien. It's kind of this magical fantasy thing. So the storytelling is a little bit looser. It's not super realistic, and so you can't, it's almost like an exercise in composition and design, right? You're not really doing, it's more like making the shapes appealing. There's a lot of shape design stuff. I don't know, I really enjoy it. Like this, for example, is a good thing. So like, I wanted this edge to be a little bit more crisp, so I took a brighter color and I carved in, making this edge nice. But then I get to this edge here, right? And if it's too bright, now it doesn't read that well, because this shape, I mean, it's not bad, but like, maybe that's too bright. Or maybe I want this part to be a little softer so that it's, you know, almost like a mist is coming up and it's softening that edge. And maybe this will be a hard edge here. And maybe there's an overlapping shape back here, you know? That way, this part isn't too bright, because again, we don't need bright against bright. So maybe I can keep the bright against dark by making another shape fade down here, you know? And like, I don't know, is that good? Or like, how big should these shapes be? This one actually feels not good. But that might be a nice way to add some overlap, is add another little shape back there. Right, so I think that graphical shape, it cleaned that up a little bit. Clarified some things. Right, same with here, maybe. But again, like this, do we want this shape over here to be, you know, bright? No, I don't want contrast over here, but I do want that green, so I'm going to make it very dull, you know? And maybe actually I'll do something with the shapes to sort of soften those edges even further. We should probably put a character in here, though. Let's do it. Let's put a little character in here. Hey, Commissar Skull, how's it going? Let's put a little red, you know, red to really attention grabbing. No, is that too red? I don't know. Also, I don't like the shape. Let's do this. Hey, how are you, Commissar Skull? How's the day? How's the day treating you? Or hope the day is treating you well. Maybe here, because then it's breaking the silhouette. I probably should have planned out where the character was going to go before. I don't know if red is going to look good here. It's a little bright. Maybe dark. Dark red. If we do that, though, then it's hard to see. Maybe that's okay, though. Maybe it's okay that we can't see it very well. Okay, am I on a new layer? Yes. Your kitchen looks like a war zone. You are remodeling it. Dang. Good luck. Good luck in the war zone. So a bit tired, but somehow happy. That's good. You probably, I mean, if you're doing a lot of work and it's probably pretty, like, you know, there's something nice about putting in good work doing stuff, you know? Doing things that you feel like matter. Maybe some people don't like that, but I genuinely think that is a great feeling where it's like, that was a day well spent. I don't know what this is. I'm not sure I like this character design, but here we are. Weird fingers. Oh no. Hold on. Maybe we put weird hands with long fingers. It's like a Edward Scissorhand style creepy thing. I don't know. I don't think that's what I want. I don't like the shape either. Something about short characters just are more appealing to me. Maybe we'll just go the super simple route. A little blob. Could do it. We could do the Amogus character. There we go. When in doubt, Amogus. I don't think we're gonna put that in there, but a little character, give him a little head, basically the same body type. Oh, I should probably not have done that. I mean, it's not. Maybe they have a stick. A classic stick salesman. There. Very, very simple, but it's fun. Okay. Now, back to our shapes. I'm just trying to add in some shapes here to make this thing feel more... I don't know. I guess it's more not detailed. Maybe detail's the right word. But, you know, add some texture, add some additional coloring, so additional lighting, some darker shapes, some lighter shapes as the, you know, as the light bounces around. Some of these are going to catch more light than others. Actually, it would be kind of cool to do like a pattern on some of these rocks. Or on all of the rocks, maybe. Is that too much? That might be too much. Up here now, we can get some 3-point perspective going on. Kinda. Which is nice. Although I think the perspective's kind of wonky, but that sort of works. Maybe it doesn't. I actually don't know. It's kind of weird because these we're clearly looking down at, but then this one we're looking up at. So it's like this is the middle point, I guess, which kind of works. But these don't feel like we're also looking up at stuff, so maybe there's not consistent. Yeah, I'm trying to mess around with some shape design. Just make it look kind of appealing. Or hopefully appealing. It would be kind of cool to show back here, like, what we're looking at. So, like, if these are these pillar things, to show that they're up here, but I'm afraid of making them look hairy. So one of the issues with, like, this concentrated detail up here is that if you go too far back, right, and then you have these same shapes, you know, shapes like this, it can start looking like little bits of hair. It's almost like a fuzzy thing because the concentration is too small, and I don't like that. I've never liked that effect, and so you have to be careful. And then if you don't do any of that detail back here, then it feels like this is a different thing happening than back here, and it doesn't feel like it's part of the same environment. So you have to, like, it's this weird juggling act. Okay, I think I like, okay, whatever's happening with that shape right there is not good. Do I make it brighter? I mean, let's do this. Let's go here. It's not very bright, but maybe we go brighter there. I don't know. We can continue just painting on here. And maybe we go in here with some softening of shapes. I don't know if we need to. But there are some shapes back here that are a little... I don't know. Maybe they're making it less painterly, which is fine. Kind of blurring stuff. I'm not a big fan of blurring the backgrounds too much, but it is fun to play around with it sometimes and see how much blur is okay. Especially when I'm using like a big, very textured brush, I find that sometimes the texture is not intentional. Like it's more of just like because I'm using a texture brush. And so going with a blur brush can actually kind of knock some of that texture back. And so you can kind of ask yourself, like, where do you want the texture? Or where do you just want it soft? Because texture is sort of soft, right? Like, generally, if you have a ton of texture, it gives the illusion of softness. But sometimes you just want it soft without the texture. And so being able to, like, make that distinction, I find is useful. I'm kind of just giving this like a surface, kind of a surface treatment where I'm just going around, you know, oh, there's a very hard edge. Let's blend that out. You know, some of these soft edges are very textural. Let's knock those out. But maybe some of them I want to go back and actually define them more. There's a weird tangent here. I wonder if I can't get rid of that a bit. But some of these textures are kind of neat, so I want to keep some of them. Especially the ones that are shape defining for the object. Because that's part of what's going to make this thing have, hopefully, clear, readable shapes. Some little shapes here. I'm wrapping up. I don't know what else to do with this really, but it's kind of a fun. It's a fun one-day painting. I enjoy these. This is sort of like chill vibes, chill painting vibes. It's relaxing. This is very much in my comfort zone. We were talking about getting out of our comfort zone earlier, which I think I have done this week quite a bit. Softening things. Good. Also, hello. Good. Good what? Good that I've gotten out of my comfort zone, or good that this isn't out of my comfort zone? Also, hi. Yeah, no, this, as I was saying, this painting is not out of my comfort zone, but I have gotten out of it a little bit this week, and which has been good. Ugh. But yeah, this is very much firmly in it. Although, I'm actually kind of goofing up the perspective a little bit on this, so maybe it's more out of my comfort zone than I thought. I don't know. Ah, thank you so much for the sub. Stoic, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the support. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's change the... Let's try to make this perspective feel a little bit more like it's going upward. Which means we can have a few more breaks there. And little subtle shapes like that. But not too many, because then it's gonna look funny. But I think that'll help differentiate different edges. Right? This'll make it look like we're looking up at this thing because there's these horizontal gaps. Something like that, maybe. Sure thing, I'll sub as long as you're making art. No, that's very nice of you. Speaking of making art, have you done any art lately? What have you been doing? And that goes for anyone, by the way. If anybody would like to share art or let me know what they've been working on or what you've been working on, let me know. Very curious. Okay, and then up here, this is a less defined, which I think is okay because it's so far away. But I'm gonna add some horizontal, some cracks in here. Maybe some lines. Maybe these bright lines cut through the form. Something that I saw. So here's a thing. This is kind of a weird thing, and I'm not sure. Like this is like a stylistic choice that I don't know I would have come across on my own. But so okay. In Minecraft, any sentence that starts that way, some people are just like, I'm out. In Minecraft, because the game has like a render engine, right? Everything has to render in a way. You can set up the distance at which things will start rendering, right? And there's sort of like a fade out effect where things on the periphery or just on the border of where it renders starts to become like a silhouette. right? There was a mod that people used for this, but then they more or less added it natively to where as things are on that border of their render, there's like a fog and it'll just show the silhouette. But there's this, like, sometimes what you'll get is where like the light will actually pass through an object because the object is rendered enough for you to see the edge, but not rendered enough for it not to know that it's solid. And so you'll get like a light passing through. And this kind of gave me that idea of like taking this bright blue and it just basically making, like, there's a shape back here, right? There's this shape, which is like a line. And normally, if this were like an actual thing back here, right, it would be passing behind, right? So this would be passed behind, and this would be solid. But I want there to be something distinguishing this shape, and because it's so far away, and all you're going to see is a line, I'm actually going to use a bright line to make that section. And that's almost like the render is like not knowing that the back sky of it is shining through. Like if this were an actual floating cliff, right, you wouldn't see that. You would see it would be covered like this, right? But because I'm choosing just to put a single line back here, so it's kind of a fun, I don't know, it's not, maybe it's not a good thing to do, but I think it's kind of interesting. It's almost like it's you're making the shape more clear by sort of bringing that background through. You're almost shining it through the entire form. Right? Normally, like up here, I'm making it dark, right? So like here, it's a dark shape that's cutting through. I'm not going to go like that, right? That would be stupid because there wouldn't be sky right here, right? It's literal rock. You would see the rock, right? But up here, I'm not. So I don't know. Again, this is like a completely, I don't know if I've ever done this before, but it's like a stylistic choice. But it seems like a solution to sort of making some interesting shapes back here when you otherwise don't have a lot of real estate to do that. Because again, if I were to do this, you wouldn't be able to tell that this is a unique shape. There's just too tiny, too dark, all the same value. Anyway, I thought it was kind of an idea. Stoic said, I just finished a mentorship with another artist, so I have some concept designs to polish. Oh, nice. That's awesome. I should do a mentorship. Not offer one, but take one. To level up a bit. Also, just have it like project, like that with a deadline where someone is like, I want to see the work you've done. You know, you have 2 weeks to do the work and then report back, you know? Something to sort of get my butt in gear would be kind of nice. Some of these could also be the underside of the thing, which we haven't drawn much of. But yeah, because we're looking underneath these, I'm actually going to add little lines going like that. Anyway, I think this is good. I think it's a good spot to stop. Fun painting. Thank you again thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for the raids, the lurks, the good conversation. And if you're just popping in, Stoic, sorry, I'm heading out as you're coming in, but glad you're here. It was a good challenge to have work assignments for each week. I add it to the sketch channel on Discord if you want. Ooh, I do want to see a snippet. That's what uni has given me, to be honest. They don't teach you much, but the fact that they push you out of your comfort zone, give you an insane amount of work in so little time, you have to cut corners. I wasn't always happy with what I got, but I learned that I can so much so fast. Yeah. Yeah, that sort of accountability thing where there's an external pressure on you saying get your butt in gear or else, or else bad grade, I guess, or maybe you get embarrassed. Like there's sort of that external pressure that really makes you do the work. And yeah, it's almost like immersive. I mean, again, we were talking about language learning earlier, but it really is like you're jumping in and you have to speak the language. You have to do the dance that they tell you to do, and you make the art on command, and be accountable. And it's like, all right, you're thrown into the deep end, and you're immersed, and that immersion is just like there's that pressure. Maybe the analogy of language learning isn't the greatest, but I feel like if I were in another country and you were alone and no one spoke the language, you'd be forced to, right? You have to, if you want something, you have to do it. There's an external pressure. It's not like, I feel like speaking English today. Nope, too bad. External pressure says you can't. I feel like that would be like, I need more of that in my life. Just like a little bit. Not a ton more, but enough more that I do things that maybe I would not otherwise do. I don't like that shape. Some of these shapes are not nice. The sketch I shared earlier was for your honors project. It turned out had 3 hours to make a key scene. Dang. Yeah, no, the thing that you shared earlier was amazing. Oh, hi, the bandwidth gods being kind today. They are being kind today. Yeah, we've dropped basically no frames. It's on 0.0%. Although, technically I've dropped 118, but out of, however many hundreds of thousands at this point, it's nothing. Yeah, no, we've been good. Really stable connection. Spin Kitty, hope you're doing well. Yeah, let me take a look in Discord. I don't even know if my Discord is open, but I'd like to take a look and see. Art. Art corner, not art corner. Art. Here we go. Oh, we have a Rylander post. That was from the 14th. Sketches and works in progress. Ooh, some snippets of character design from a mentorship. Nice. I like it. You got a ladle. You got a spoon, a wooden spoon and a ladle. Got all the little details with like the cloth with the threads ripped. Nice. These are cool. Yeah, that's very neat. Thank you so much, Stoic. So real talk, I can't say I recommend ever doing a 24-hour art stream and having a sleeping block in there. And not having a sleeping block in there. Don't think I'll ever commit to that length again. Yeah, I mean, art or not. I mean, art would make it worse if you're doing anything sort of like actually trying to create something in like the idea stage. Like maybe a render stream. I mean, 24 hours is absurd. You don't stream for 24 hours ever. And if you have a sleeping block, then you're not doing a 24-hour stream. You're just doing 2 separate streams. Yeah, don't do 24 hours. That's absurd. I would never do more than like 12 hours max, and even 12 hours is absurd. I don't get it. At that point, the quality has got to be going down so much that it would be terrible. The only way I could see, I think a lot of streamers who do like ludicrously long streams, the drop in quality is oftentimes the draw of the stream. So like if you're playing a game, you start doing terrible, you start being a little loopy, things they stop making sense, and like that can be kind of fun, I think, for some people, like if chat is engaging and interacting. But I feel like for most people, especially if you have like a medium to small audience like I do, I just can't see the benefit. At some point it would get quiet, I would be getting it. I just don't know how I would do it. You started to get better, and you're wondering if it's because you started to go for longer. I started being less critical about. So that is a real effect. And actually, I talk about this quite a bit, but not with streaming for 24 hours, but just doing art when you're tired. There is like a sweet spot. I don't know when it is for, I'm sure it's different for everybody based on how active your brain is and how much you think about certain things and all that. But yeah, you sort of like lose some inhibitions as you get tired. You're a little bit less self-filtering. You're not thinking of as many things at once. Probably you get a little quieter just because you can't juggle as many mental tasks. So yeah, I mean, if I wake up right in the morning, I can't do great art. It's too. I feel like I'm thinking of too many things. But as I get tired, I can sort of settle down into like a render phase pretty easily. And it's like I'm not too as distracted. So it's sort of like I need the activity that I'm doing to match sort of the amount of stimulus my brain wants. And if I'm too stimulated, or if too much stuff's going on in my brain, I need something really stimulating, art's just not going to be it for me, But if I'm getting a little tired and something a little bit less exciting and flashy can stimulate me, maybe I could really get into doing rendering. But in the morning, that's just not enough, right? I need more than that. There's too much stuff happening. Rendering is just boring, but there's a sweet spot, Same goes for like doing design work, right? The coming up with ideas and iterating. There's a sweet spot for that. It's not the same as my render phase, right? Rendering for me requires a different sweet spot than design work. And it's sometimes as you get tired, you pass through those phases and you go up and down. You're like, oh, look, I'm getting better, but I'm actually tired. That's weird. It's strange. A night witch. You're a night witch. A night owl? But yeah. No, I think in general though, just streaming for 24 hours is super unhealthy. I mean, that no one should be up that long anyway. But I do think trying to learn where and when you do your best work, or which types of work you do best under which conditions, is good. That just seems like a thing to know about yourself. But yeah, I feel like as far as streaming goes, I can't imagine that would be good. Maybe if you had another person there and you were like a duo streaming and you could kind of take on and off, and one person was going to go, get some food, maybe take a quick 30-minute nap or something. Like I could maybe see where you have like a 2 people co-hosting a stream could work. But that would be really, really hard on your own. I don't know. I wouldn't do it. Unless there was, I mean, again, I should never say never. But there would have to be a really strong reason where, like, kind of like in painting, right? There needs to be, like, I can start anywhere, but then as you go on and make choices, there needs to be some sort of justification. Like, if you were to say put a helicopter in this painting, I would say, why? I'm not saying helicopters are bad. I just think that you need a reason because it doesn't make a lot of sense. right? Stream quality is going to drop if you stream for 24 hours. Conversation skills and attentiveness is going to drop, right? No one can stay for that long, so people are going to miss stuff constantly, which means if you have anything thematic or working on one thing from start to finish, everybody's gonna miss most of it, and so that's not good, right? There's a lot of negatives, but like you would need some really strong upside to make it like, yes, this is the right play, you know? I just don't know what that would be for me. Maybe there could be one. Yeah, like a charity stream, I guess. But again, do people, why 24 hours? I don't know. I don't really get it. I don't get 24-hour streams. Don't understand them. Probably never will. That's okay. I will try to understand them though, but not by doing them, because I like my sleep. I need a good solid 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night. Not that I always get it, but I need it. I like sleep. Sleep's great. Okay, time to go though. You did it on a whim. You're crazy. Okay. Let us go raid somebody. Thank y'all for being here. Whoa, I hear myself. Oh wow, that was loud. Sorry guys. Let's go to Skittle. We're gonna go see Skittle.
Where is it? Where's my Discord?
Oh no, I hear Skittle. All right. If you guys don't know Skittle, you should. A channel cannot raid itself. I just copied my own name. Apparently, I'm trying to raid myself. Great. Speaking of being tired. Perfect. That was a nice stream. Thank you. I'm glad you were here. It definitely made it better with having good conversation. Every stream is better when there's people hanging out and chatting. As much as I can try to ramble. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Means a lot. Thanks for being here. Next stream, I will probably do some... I don't know if you want to call it concept art, but basically concept art of like a Minecraft tower build that we're doing, or that I'm doing. We, as in me and the other people building it. But, yeah. So I might do some concept art stuff, kind of, sort of. It's kind of illustration, though. It's already kind of planned. But anyway, might do that next stream. But yeah, we also have the thing coming up on the 25th of, so in 10 days or 9 days from today, on a Saturday, on the 25th of October, we're doing a sketch exchange. So that's a thing that's coming up. But yeah, take care, everybody. Thanks for being here. And thank you for all the support, whether it's a sub or